What if Madara Uchiha raised Naruto from birth? Instead of dying after the Nine-Tails attack, Madara extends his life long enough to steal newborn Naruto and raise him as the perfect weapon for the Eye of the Moon plan. Trained in ancient Uchiha techniques from infancy, Naruto grows up not as Konoha's outcast hero, but as Madara's dark successor prepared to reshape the shinobi world through force. Saga 1: Childhood under Madara. In the original timeline, Naruto Uzumaki's childhood was defined by loneliness and rejection. The night of his birth saw the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, sacrifice his life to seal the nine-tailed fox inside his newborn son, hoping the village would see Naruto as a hero who helped contain the beast. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, returned from retirement to lead Konoha and decreed that no one should speak of Naruto's status as the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Despite this decree, most villagers harbored deep resentment toward Naruto, seeing him not as the container but as the fox itself. Parents warned their children to stay away from him, and Naruto grew up completely isolated with no knowledge of his parents or why he was hated. He lived alone in a small apartment provided by the village, surviving on cup ramen and the monthly allowance from the third Hokage. The loneliness drove him to seek attention through pranks and mischief, painting the Hokage monument and causing chaos throughout the village. He attended the Ninja Academy, where he struggled with basic techniques like the clone jutsu, partly because the Nine-Tails' chakra disrupted his chakra control. His instructor, Iruka Umino, initially viewed him with suspicion since Iruka's parents died during the Nine-Tails attack. The turning point in the original timeline came when the rogue instructor Mizuki manipulated Naruto into stealing the Forbidden Scroll of Seals. Mizuki revealed the truth about the Nine-Tails sealed within Naruto, intending to break his spirit. However, Iruka defended Naruto and acknowledged him as a person separate from the beast. Naruto defeated Mizuki using the multiple shadow clone jutsu he learned from the scroll, earning Iruka's recognition and his forehead protector. This moment marked the beginning of Naruto's journey as a ninja. He graduated from the academy and was placed on Team 7 alongside Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno under Kakashi Hatake's leadership. The original Naruto was shaped by rejection and sought connection above all else. He inherited his father's heroic nature and his mother's fiery spirit. His dream of becoming Hokage emerged from his desire to finally be recognized and respected by everyone who had shunned him. The lonely child would eventually grow into the hero who saved the world through his unwavering belief that no one should be left alone in darkness. The divergence occurs the very night of Naruto's birth. Madara Uchiha, kept alive by the Gedo statue in his hidden cavern beneath the mountain's graveyard, receives word through White Zetsu that Obito's attack on Konoha failed. The fourth Hokage sealed the Nine-Tails into his newborn son before dying, and Obito fled wounded from the battle. Madara's ancient mind processes this information carefully. The plan he spent decades crafting requires patience and the right tools. Obito proved useful, but lacks the discipline needed for the long game. The idea forms slowly, then crystallizes with perfect clarity. Why manipulate from shadows when he could shape the perfect successor from birth? A Jinchuriki raised without the weakness of attachment, trained from infancy in the Uchiha ways, and molded to understand that true peace requires absolute control. Madara extends his life slightly longer, using the Gedo statue's power, pushing his deteriorating body past its natural limits one final time. He orders White Zetsu to infiltrate Konoha's hospital during the chaos following the Nine-Tails attack and bring him the infant Jinchuriki. White Zetsu emerges from the ground in the hospital morgue where Kushina Uzumaki's body lies. The infiltration proves simple, with most shinobi dealing with village repairs and the aftermath of battle. Medical staff rushes between emergency cases, and the village's perimeter security focuses outward on potential threats rather than internal infiltration. White Zetsu's unique ability to merge with plant matter and earth makes him nearly undetectable. He locates the newborn Naruto Uzumaki in the nursery section, sleeping peacefully despite the massive chakra sealed within his small body. The nurses who should be watching have been called away to help with emergency casualties. White Zetsu transforms to look like a medical worker, wraps the infant carefully in blankets, and sinks back into the earth. The transformation takes mere seconds. Within hours, the disappearance is discovered, and Konoha erupts into absolute panic. The third Hokage mobilizes every available shinobi to search for the missing Jinchuriki. A and BU teams scour every inch of the village and the surrounding forests. Tracker Nin follow every possible trail. They find absolutely nothing because White Zetsu travels through the underground root systems, moving through the earth itself far beyond their search radius, carrying the child to Madara's hidden sanctuary. Madara holds the infant Naruto for the first time, studying the seal work visible on the child's stomach. The 8 trigram seal glows faintly with residual chakra. The fourth Hokage's craftsmanship impresses even Madara's critical eye. The seal will allow controlled access to the Nine Tails chakra while preventing the beast from taking over completely. Perfect for his purposes, the infant makes small sounds, unaware that his entire future has just changed forever. Madara names his plans aloud to the sleeping child, his voice echoing in the cavern. This child will never know the weakness of the Hidden Leaf's philosophy. There will be no poisonous doctrine about protecting precious people or risking everything for fleeting bonds. Instead, Naruto will understand from the moment he can comprehend language that the current world is broken beyond repair. That true peace requires sacrifice. That the infinite Tsukuyomi represents salvation for all humanity. Madara assigns White Zetsu clones to help care for the child's basic needs, establishing feeding schedules and monitoring the infant's health. He designs a training regimen that will begin the moment Naruto can walk, mapping out every year of development with the precision of a master strategist. The early years follow a strict routine. Madara teaches Naruto to speak, but the first words the boy learns are about the corrupted shinobi system and the necessity of the Moon's Eye plan. There are no toys, no games, no childhood frivolity. The cavern becomes Naruto's entire world, lit by bioluminescent moss and the pale glow of the Gedo statue. Madara reads to Naruto from the Uchiha stone tablet, explaining its teachings even before the child fully understands the words. He describes the Sage of Six Paths, the 10 Tails, and the history of the shinobi world in terms a growing mind can grasp. Physical conditioning begins at age 3. Naruto runs through the cavern systems until his small legs give out, then Madara makes him run more. The boy's Uzumaki heritage grants him tremendous stamina even at this young age, and Madara pushes this advantage relentlessly. Madara demonstrates basic taijutsu forms and has Naruto repeat them endlessly, correcting every incorrect angle and stance. The boy knows nothing else, so he obeys without question. When Naruto asks about the world outside, Madara describes a place of endless war, betrayal, and suffering. He tells Naruto that one day, when he is strong enough, they will save everyone from that suffering by granting them perfect dreams. Madara's teachings about the Nine Tails differ completely from what Naruto would have learned in Konoha. Instead of viewing Kurama as a demon or a curse, Madara presents the Biju as a tool and a weapon. He explains that the Sage of Six Paths split the 10 Tails into 9 beasts to prevent the original monster from reforming, and that controlling these beasts represents the key to ultimate power. Madara shows Naruto his own Mangekyo Sharingan, the patterns spinning in his ancient eyes, explaining how the Uchiha bloodline grants power over tailed beasts through ocular prowess. Though Naruto has no Sharingan himself and lacks Uchiha blood, Madara teaches him meditation techniques to communicate with the Nine Tails' sealed consciousness. By age 5, Naruto can enter his own mindscape and stand before the massive cage holding Kurama. The fox's initial rage and hatred wash over the small child like a tsunami of malevolent chakra, but Naruto shows no fear because Madara taught him to view this as a transaction rather than a relationship. Power in exchange for eventual freedom under the infinite Tsukuyomi. Kurama senses something different about this Jinchuriki, something cold and calculating even at such a young age. The fox realizes this child was not raised with love or hope. This might prove interesting. The training intensifies as Naruto grows. Madara begins chakra control exercises earlier than any academy would attempt, pushing the boundaries of what a child's developing chakra network can handle. Walking on walls at age 5. Walking on water by age 6. Studying hand signs and chakra theory with the focus of a monk dedicated to a single doctrine. Madara personally corrects every mistake with harsh words and occasionally harsher physical lessons when Naruto fails to meet expectations. There is no encouragement or praise, only acknowledgement when Naruto reaches the expected standard. Madara operates on the philosophy that struggle breeds strength and that coddling creates weakness. He tells Naruto stories of his own childhood during the Warring States period, when children became soldiers at 6, and death came for the weak without mercy. Madara describes watching his brothers die in battle, describes killing enemy children barely older than Naruto is now. These stories are not meant to traumatize but to educate. Naruto learns that mercy is weakness, that bonds become chains that drag you down, that the world respects only power. These lessons seep into his developing worldview like water into stone, becoming the foundation of everything he understands about reality. By age 7, Naruto's training includes learning to tap into the Nine-Tails chakra deliberately and with increasing control. The Uzumaki bloodline gives him tremendous chakra reserves even without the fox, and Madara exploits this advantage fully. The seal allows small amounts of Kurama's chakra to mix with Naruto's own, and Madara pushes Naruto to draw on more and more. The boy learns to endure the burning sensation as foreign chakra floods his system, chakra that feels wrong and hostile in his coils. The boy's eyes turn red, his whisker marks darken and thicken, and his power multiplies exponentially. Madara notes with satisfaction that Naruto possesses natural compatibility with the beast's chakra due to his Uzumaki heritage, something Kushina would have taught him in a different life. They work on controlling the transformation, keeping Naruto's consciousness dominant even as the fox's malevolent energy tries to overwhelm him and take control of the body. These sessions leave Naruto exhausted and sometimes injured when the chakra burns his coils from overuse, but he never complains. Madara taught him that pain is just sensation, information for the mind, completely irrelevant to the mission. Madara also begins Naruto's education in the broader shinobi world beyond the cavern walls. He explains the hidden villages system in detail, describing how Hashirama Senju's idealistic dream created the very conflicts it sought to prevent. The first Hokage wanted to protect children and end the clan wars, but instead, he created a system where entire villages now clash in devastating conflicts. Madara details the first, second, and third Great Ninja Wars, emphasizing the massive death tolls and the suffering caused by the current system. He describes how children still become soldiers, how villages still send their young to die for territorial disputes and political conflicts. Madara shows particular emphasis when discussing Konoha, describing it as the village that betrayed him and destroyed the Uchiha clan from within through systematic political isolation. He tells Naruto that Konoha is the village that would have made him a weapon and a pariah, that every person would have looked at him with fear and hatred. The third Hokage is weak, and his doctrine of the will of fire, nothing but a leash on the strong to make them serve the weak. Madara explains that Naruto's parents died sealing the Nine-Tails, abandoning him to be raised as a tool for the village's benefit. This framing ensures Naruto harbors no longing for the village that might have been his home. The most crucial aspect of Naruto's education involves learning about the infinite Tsukuyomi itself. Madara describes the technique in exhaustive detail, explaining how it will cast the entire world into a genjutsu powered by the moon, reflecting the Rinne Sharingan. Every person will experience their perfect dream, living out their ideal life without pain, loss, or conflict. Naruto asks what happens to people's real bodies, and Madara explains they will be sustained by the God Tree, living peaceful dream lives while their chakra nourishes a perfect world. There will be no more war. No more hatred. No more children forced to become soldiers and die for adults' mistakes. No more families torn apart. Madara presents this as salvation, as the only logical solution to humanity's fundamentally flawed nature. He explains that he tried Hashirama's way, tried believing in the village system, and watched it fail spectacularly. The infinite Tsukuyomi represents the next evolution, the final solution that will end the cycle of hatred permanently. Naruto accepts this teaching without question because he has known no other philosophy. To him, Madara's vision represents objective truth about the world. The isolation proves both advantage and disadvantage for Madara's plan. Naruto grows strong without the distractions of friendship or the limitations of academy pacing that holds back talented students. He learns techniques years before his age cohort would encounter them. But he also lacks understanding of genuine human connection or empathy. White Zetsu clones provide conversation, but they serve Madara absolutely and offer no alternative perspectives on the world. Naruto develops a clinical view of people as obstacles to be removed or tools to be utilized, rather than individuals with their own thoughts and feelings. Madara notes this growing detachment with approval. Attachments create weakness. Hashirama's love for his friends made him soft, made him unable to do what was necessary for true peace. Naruto will not suffer from such limitations. He will have the strength to carry out the plan regardless of the cost to himself or others. By age 10, Naruto's skills surpass what most genin possess at graduation from the academy. He masters the shadow clone technique by studying it from the forbidden scroll that Madara acquired decades ago. His massive chakra reserves allow him to create hundreds of clones, where most jonin can manage a handful. Madara teaches him to use clones for training acceleration, a technique Naruto would have discovered himself in the original timeline, but now learns systematically. Each clone's experiences transfer to the original when it dispels, allowing Naruto to compress years of training into months. Madara drills him in taijutsu until every movement becomes muscle memory. The Uchiha style focuses on speed and precision, using the Sharingan's predictive abilities to counter opponents. Naruto lacks the Sharingan, but compensates with pure repetition and the stamina to train far longer than any normal person. His body develops lean and strong, conditioned by constant physical stress from both training and channeling the Nine Tails chakra. Madara begins teaching Naruto about sealing techniques, drawing on both Uchiha knowledge and what he learned from studying the Uzumaki clan before their destruction. The Uzumaki specialized in Fuinjutsu, and Naruto's heritage makes him naturally suited to learning these complex techniques. Madara cannot teach him everything about the Uzumaki sealing arts, since that knowledge died with the clan, but he provides foundations in chakra sealing, barrier creation, and seal theory. Naruto studies the 8 trigram seal on his own stomach, understanding how it functions to regulate the Nine Tails chakra. This knowledge proves crucial for learning to manipulate the seal's parameters, loosening it slightly to access more power, or tightening it if the fox's influence grows too strong. Madara emphasizes that the seal is a tool like any other, and understanding tools grants control over outcomes. Combat philosophy forms another critical element of Naruto's education. Madara teaches him that honorable combat is a myth perpetuated by the weak to constrain the strong. There are no rules in real battle, no referees to call fouls. Victory justifies any method because the dead cannot protest the means of their defeat. Naruto learns to exploit every advantage, strike when opponents are vulnerable, and show no mercy to those who stand between him and his objectives. Madara describes battles from his long life, explaining how he defeated more skilled opponents through superior tactics and willingness to do what they would not. Poison, traps, striking from ambush, targeting enemies when they sleep, all valid approaches. The shinobi world claims to value honor and codes, but Madara reveals this as hypocrisy. Villages employ assassination squads like Anbu precisely because they understand that real power comes from doing what must be done regardless of honor. By age 12, Naruto's training reaches new intensity. Madara's body grows weaker by the day, despite the Gedo statue's support. He knows his time is limited and accelerates Naruto's development accordingly. Combat training becomes brutal, with White Zetsu clones attacking Naruto at random times to keep him constantly alert. Madara pushes Naruto to access higher levels of the Nine Tails chakra, allowing more tails to manifest. The one-tailed cloak appears first, then 2 tails, the transformations growing more bestial and harder to control. Kurama's consciousness pushes back harder as more of his chakra is drawn out, trying to take over Naruto's body. But Naruto's iron will, forged by 12 years of harsh conditioning, refuses to break. He learns to walk the edge between using the fox's power and being consumed by it. These sessions sometimes cause physical damage to Naruto's body as the corrosive chakra burns his flesh, but his Uzumaki healing factor and the fox's own regenerative properties repair the damage rapidly. Madara finally begins explaining his imminent death to Naruto. He tells the boy that his ancient body cannot sustain life much longer, that even the Gedo statue's power has limits. Naruto asks what will happen to the plan, and Madara explains that Naruto will carry it forward. He introduces Naruto to Black Zetsu, explaining that this being contains Madara's will and knowledge. Black Zetsu will guide Naruto when Madara is gone, providing strategic advice and information. Madara also tells Naruto about Obito, the other piece on the board, though he does not reveal everything about Obito's nature or goals. Naruto will need to work with Obito to gather the tailed beasts and resurrect the Ten Tails. Madara explains the Rinnegan and how Nagato possesses these legendary eyes that will be crucial for the plan. He details the Akatsuki organization that Obito controls, describing its members and their abilities. Naruto absorbs all this information, understanding that he is inheriting a plan decades in the making. The education extends to specific knowledge about each tailed beast and their Jinchuriki. Madara provides detailed intelligence on the Hidden Village's Jinchuriki programs. Gaara of the Sand wields Shukaku, the one tail. Yugito Ni of the Cloud possesses the two tails. Yagura of the Mist, though recently deceased, held the three tails. Madara describes the personalities and abilities of each beast, explaining their strengths and weaknesses. He tells Naruto that capturing these beasts will require overwhelming force or clever strategy, depending on the target. Some Jinchuriki have full control of their beasts, while others struggle constantly. Madara emphasizes that Naruto's Nine Tails represents the strongest of all the beasts, giving him an inherent advantage if he can fully harness its power. Madara's final lessons focus on the infinite Tsukuyomi's execution. He explains that, first, all nine-tailed beasts must be gathered and sealed into the Gedo statue to revive the Ten Tails. Someone must then become the Ten Tails Jinchuriki to control its power. This person needs to possess the Rinnegan to use the technique that reflects the eyes pattern off the moon. Madara originally planned to be revived for this role using Nagato's Rinnegan and the Outer Path Samsara of Heavenly Life technique. However, with his death imminent and plans always subject to change, he tells Naruto there may be alternative paths. The key is gathering the beasts first. Everything else can be adapted as circumstances require. Madara's pragmatism in the face of death shows Naruto that even perfect plans must remain flexible. In the final days before Madara's death, he shares his most personal thoughts with Naruto. He speaks of Hashirama Senju, the friend who became his greatest enemy. Madara describes their childhood meetings by the river, the dreams they shared of ending the wars, and how those dreams shattered when their clans demanded they choose loyalty over friendship. He explains how he tried to believe in Hashirama's village system, but recognized its fundamental flaws. Madara admits that Hashirama was the only person he ever considered an equal, the only person whose strength matched his own. He tells Naruto that true peace requires sacrificing personal bonds for the greater good, something Hashirama could never understand. These final lessons serve to reinforce everything Naruto has learned. Attachments lead to suffering. Power without will is meaningless. The infinite Tsukuyomi is not just a plan, but the only solution to an unsolvable problem. Madara Uchiha dies at age 93, his body finally giving out despite all efforts to sustain it. His last words to Naruto emphasize the mission above all else. The boy is now 12 years old, possessing the skills of a Jonin and the mindset of a weapon. Naruto shows no grief at Madara's death because he was taught that emotion is weakness. Black Zetsu immediately assumes the role of guide and advisor, just as Madara promised. White Zetsu clones remain to assist with logistics. Naruto stands alone in the cavern, the Gedo statue looming behind him, and contemplates the future. He has spent every moment of his conscious life preparing for the mission ahead. He knows nothing of friendship, love, or mercy. The Hidden Leaf Village is not his home, but the enemy that would have destroyed him. The world outside is not something to protect, but something to save through force. Naruto Uzumaki, raised by Madara, is not the hero who will inspire hope. He is the weapon that will reshape reality itself, and the shinobi world has no idea what is coming for them. If you're blown away by how different this timeline is becoming, make sure to subscribe because we're just getting started with this complete series reimagining. Moving on to the second saga of our What If timeline. Saga 2, Emergence and First Operations. In the original timeline, Naruto's journey as a shinobi began at age 12 when he graduated from the Ninja Academy. After stealing the Forbidden Scroll and defeating Mizuki, Naruto earned his forehead protector and was assigned to Team 7 alongside Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno under the leadership of Kakashi Hatake. Kakashi tested the team with the Bell Test, a lesson designed to teach teamwork and the importance of putting comrades above mission rules. The team initially failed because Sasuke and Naruto competed rather than cooperating, but Kakashi gave them a second chance after they demonstrated willingness to sacrifice for each other. This formed the foundation of Team 7's dynamic, with Naruto and Sasuke developing a rivalry that pushed both to improve, while Sakura struggled to find her place between them. Team 7's first major mission outside the village came when they escorted the bridge builder Tazuna to the Land of Waves. What began as a simple C-rank escort mission transformed into something far more dangerous when they encountered Zabuza Momochi, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Mist, and his young assistant Haku. During the confrontation on the bridge, Naruto faced Haku in combat and experienced the Nine Tails chakra manifesting for the first time in response to his rage and desperation to protect Sasuke. The red chakra cloak granted him power beyond his normal limits, allowing him to match Haku's speed. Sasuke awakened his Sharingan during this battle to protect Naruto, demonstrating the depth of their bond despite their rivalry. Haku ultimately sacrificed himself to protect Zabuza, and Zabuza in turn gave his life fighting Gato's mercenaries to honor Haku's memory. These events taught Naruto important lessons about the value of bonds and the sacrifices shinobi make for those they care about. Following the Land of Waves mission, Team 7 returned to Konoha and continued taking missions while training in their respective skills. Naruto learned that the Chunin exams would be held in Konoha, offering genin from various villages the opportunity to be promoted. Despite being fresh graduates, Kakashi nominated Team 7 to participate. The Chunin exams brought together numerous talented young shinobi, including Gaara and his siblings from Sunagakure, Neji Hyuga and his team, and various others. The first exam tested intelligence gathering and deception. The second exam in the Forest of Death tested survival skills and combat ability, and the preliminary matches before the finals showcased individual fighting prowess. During the Forest of Death, Team 7 encountered Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin, who marked Sasuke with the Cursed Seal and demonstrated power far beyond what the genin could handle. Naruto's determination and the Nine Tails chakra helped him survive encounters with enemy teams and push forward. The preliminary matches featured Naruto's fight against Kiba Inuzuka, which he won through clever tactics despite Kiba's superior tracking and teamwork with Akamaru. Naruto also witnessed Neji's brutal treatment of Hinata Hyuga, sparking his determination to defeat Neji and prove that destiny is not predetermined. Before the finals, Naruto trained with Jiraiya, who recognized him as the Nine Tails Jinchuriki and taught him to better access and control the beast's chakra. Jiraiya introduced him to summoning jutsu, and Naruto signed the Toad contract, eventually summoning Gamabunta through sheer determination and the Nine Tails chakra. These weeks of training represented Naruto's first real mentorship from someone who understood his burden. In the finals, Naruto defeated Neji through determination and the Nine Tails chakra, proving that hard work could overcome natural talent and predetermined fate. This victory earned him recognition from many who had dismissed him as a failure. However, the Chunin exams were interrupted by Orochimaru and Sunagakure's invasion of Konoha, leading to the third Hokage's death in battle against his former student. The invasion marked a turning point for Naruto, showing him the reality of war and loss. Afterward, Jiraiya took Naruto on a journey to find Tsunade, the last of the legendary Sannin, who would become the fifth Hokage. During this journey, Naruto first encountered Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki of the Akatsuki, the organization hunting Jinchuriki. Jiraiya explained that Akatsuki sought the tailed beasts for some larger plan, making Naruto a target. This introduced the overarching threat that would define much of the series. The what-if timeline begins with Naruto standing alone in Madara's cavern, Black Zetsu materializing from the shadows beside him. The creature's yellow eyes study the 12-year-old boy, who represents the culmination of Madara's final plan. Black Zetsu speaks in that unsettling dual-toned voice, explaining that the first phase involves intelligence gathering and continued training. Naruto cannot simply emerge into the shinobi world without preparation. The major villages have Anbu and Hunter Nin, who would detect and report unusual activity. More importantly, Konoha has been searching for him for 12 years. The moment anyone realizes the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki survived, multiple villages will mobilize to either capture or kill him. Black Zetsu outlines a methodical approach. First, Naruto must master higher levels of the Nine-Tails power until he can access at least 4 tails without losing control. Second, they need current intelligence on all Jinchuriki locations and the political situation between villages. Third, Naruto must make contact with Obito and integrate into the broader plan. Black Zetsu explains that Obito operates under Madara's name, controlling the Akatsuki organization from the shadows while wearing an orange mask and calling himself Tobi. Naruto spends the next 6 months in intense isolation training, pushing his body and chakra reserves to their absolute limits. He works on accessing the Nine-Tails chakra in progressively higher amounts, allowing 1 tail to manifest, then 2, then 3. Each level brings more power, but also more of Kurama's malevolent influence trying to overwhelm his consciousness. The fox recognizes that Naruto is different from typical Jinchuriki, lacking the emotional connections that usually make them vulnerable to the beast's hatred. Kurama finds this both intriguing and frustrating. The beast cannot manipulate Naruto through emotional pain or desire for power, because Naruto views their relationship as purely transactional. When Naruto enters the mindscape to confront Kurama, he speaks with clinical detachment about their arrangement. The infinite Tsukuyomi will free Kurama from the seal eventually, and in exchange, Naruto requires access to the chakra necessary to complete the mission. Kurama, despite his hatred of humans and their seals, recognizes the cold logic. This Jinchuriki offers something unique, a clear transaction with a defined endpoint that benefits both parties. Black Zetsu, meanwhile, gathers intelligence through white Zetsu clones that infiltrate all 5 great nations. The reports paint a picture of the current shinobi world. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, still leads Konoha, now an elderly man, worn down by years of service and the losses from Orochimaru's invasion that happened in another timeline. In this reality, the invasion never occurred because Orochimaru had no access to Konoha through the Chunin exam's manipulation. The third Hokage continues leading, focused on rebuilding Konoha's strength after the Nine-Tails attack 12 years ago. The village never found Naruto's body, leading many to believe he died despite the official position that the search continues. Some Anbu still follow leads occasionally, but most resources have been redirected elsewhere. Sasuke Uchiha, now 12 years old, trains obsessively to kill his brother Itachi, who slaughtered the Uchiha clan. Sakura Haruno studies to become a kunoichi, lacking the same motivation she had when competing for Sasuke's attention on a team. Kakashi Hatake continues serving as a jonin, never taking on Team 7 because there is no team to take. The ripples of Naruto's absence have subtly reshaped dozens of lives. The intelligence on other Jinchuriki proves more detailed. Gaara of Sunagakure, wielder of Shukaku the One-Tail, is known as a monster even by his own village's standards. His father, the 4th Kazekage, uses him as a weapon while keeping him isolated, creating a deeply unstable and violent individual. Gaara's sand automatically defends him, making assassination nearly impossible. Black Zetsu notes that Gaara represents both a challenge and an opportunity. His instability makes him dangerous but also predictable. Yugito Nii of Kumogakure possesses the 2 tails Matatabi and serves as a capable jonin with full control over her beast. The Cloud Village's Jinchuriki program is among the most successful, and Yugito works alongside Killer Bee, the 8 tails Jinchuriki, who has achieved perfect synchronization with his beast. Yagura, the 4th Mizukage and 3 tails Jinchuriki, was killed several years ago, leaving the 3 tails to reform in the wild according to the natural cycle of tailed beasts. Roshi of Iwagakure carries the Four Tails Son Goku, while Han of the same village holds the Five Tails Kokuo. Both are powerful shinobi in their 50s who have fought in previous wars. Utakata, the Six Tails Jinchuriki, defected from Kirigakure and operates as a rogue ninja, constantly hunted by his former village. Fu of Takigakure possesses the Seven Tails Chome. This intelligence provides targets, but also reveals the enormous challenge ahead. After 6 months, Black Zetsu determines Naruto is ready for the next phase. They must make contact with Obito and present Naruto as Madara's successor. Black Zetsu uses its connection to White Zetsu clones spread across the elemental nations to send a message to Obito at his current location. The message is simple. Madara's final plan has entered a new phase, and Obito must meet at designated coordinates. Obito, still operating as Tobi within the Akatsuki, receives this message with suspicion. He believed Madara's plans died with the old man. With Obito free to pursue the Moon's Eye plan in his own way, the revelation that Madara prepared a contingency both intrigues and concerns him. Obito travels to the meeting point, an abandoned temple in a neutral territory between the Land of Fire and Land of Earth. He arrives wearing his orange spiral mask, his Sharingan hidden beneath it, and finds Black Zetsu waiting alongside a young man with spiky blonde hair and blue eyes. The whisker marks on the boy's face immediately identify him as a Jinchuriki, and Obito's mind races through possibilities. Black Zetsu introduces Naruto as the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, stolen from Konoha as an infant and raised by Madara himself for the past 12 years. Obito's visible eye widens behind the mask. This explains Konoha's mysterious loss of their Jinchuriki all those years ago, a case that baffled the shinobi world. Madara took the child and molded him specifically for the plan. Black Zetsu explains that Madara's death was inevitable, but that Naruto represents the perfected vessel for continuing the mission. Unlike Obito, who came to the plan through tragedy and emotional manipulation, Naruto was raised from birth understanding the necessity of the infinite Tsukuyomi. He has no attachments to complicate his judgment, no bonds to make him waver. Obito studies the boy, noting the cold assessment in those blue eyes. There is no childish enthusiasm or naivety. The boy looks at him the way one examines a tool, evaluating utility and function. Obito finds this deeply unsettling because it reminds him of Madara himself. Naruto speaks for the first time in the meeting, his voice calm and measured. He explains that he understands Obito's role in the plan and the work done, establishing the Akatsuki as a tool for gathering the tailed beasts. Naruto states plainly that he is not here to take over or challenge Obito's authority within the organization. Instead, he offers his services as an additional asset. A Jinchuriki working for the organization that hunts Jinchuriki provides unique advantages. Naruto can infiltrate and gather intelligence that others cannot. His Nine Tails chakra gives him power comparable to Akatsuki members despite his youth. Most importantly, Naruto suggests, having two individuals completely dedicated to the infinite Tsukuyomi increases the probability of success if one is killed or captured. Obito processes this cold logic. The boy makes valid points, and his offer to work within existing structures rather than disrupting them shows strategic thinking. Black Zetsu adds that Madara specifically instructed both Obito and Naruto to cooperate, that the plan is larger than any individual ego or desire for control. After several hours of discussion, Obito agrees to the collaboration with conditions. Naruto will not be officially revealed to the Akatsuki members yet. His existence remains a secret asset that Obito can deploy strategically. Naruto will continue training and gathering intelligence on Jinchuriki, while Obito continues the public-facing work of the Akatsuki. When the time comes to capture the tailed beasts, they will coordinate operations to maximize efficiency. Obito also demands to test Naruto's abilities personally. If the boy cannot demonstrate the skill level he claims, then this entire arrangement is pointless. Naruto agrees without hesitation. They move to a clearing near the temple, and Obito drops into a combat stance. The fight that follows shocks Obito to his core. Naruto moves with precision beyond his years, utilizing shadow clones to create complex attack patterns while his real body strikes from unexpected angles. When Obito uses Kamui to phase through attacks, Naruto adapts instantly, recognizing the spatial temporal nature of the technique and adjusting his timing. Most impressively, Naruto taps into the Nine Tails chakra deliberately and with control, manifesting 2 tails of red chakra that increase his speed and power exponentially. Obito finds himself actually defending seriously against a 12-year-old. The fight ends when both fighters acknowledge the other's skill. Obito realizes Madara truly did create something remarkable. Over the following year, Naruto operates in the shadows of the shinobi world while maintaining contact with Obito and Black Zetsu. He travels between nations, always concealed, always observing. His first target for intelligence gathering is Tsunagakure and Gaara. Naruto spends weeks infiltrating the desert village using transformation jutsu and careful timing. He observes Gaara from a distance, watching how the sand automatically defends him and how the villagers react with fear and hatred. Naruto recognizes the isolation because Madara described similar situations, though Naruto himself never experienced it personally. Gaara is a weapon like Naruto, but one that was raised among those who feared him rather than isolated completely. The difference in outcomes is notable. Gaara's instability comes from conflicting desires for acknowledgement and the internalized hatred from his father's treatment. Naruto feels no such conflict. He gathers detailed intelligence on Gaara's abilities, the sand's automatic defense mechanisms, and the best approaches for eventual capture. The One Tail will be one of the easier targets despite Gaara's power, because his instability can be exploited. Naruto's next intelligence operation takes him to Kumogakure, the Cloud Village. This proves more challenging because the Cloud maintains tight security, and their Jinchuriki program is considered the most successful among the villages. Killer Bee, the 8 Tails Jinchuriki, has achieved perfect synchronization with his beast and operates freely within and outside the village. Yugido Ni similarly maintains control of the 2 Tails. Naruto infiltrates by posing as a traveling merchant's assistant, a common enough role that draws little attention. He observes the village structure, noting the militaristic efficiency and the 4th Raikage's leadership style. Killer Bee's presence is impossible to miss because the man makes a spectacle of himself, rapping in public and drawing crowds. Naruto analyzes this behavior and recognizes it as genuine rather than an act. Killer Bee has somehow found peace with his situation through his relationship with the 8 Tails. This represents the opposite of what Madara taught, a Jinchuriki who embraced bonds rather than rejecting them. Naruto files this information away, knowing that Killer Bee will be among the most difficult targets to capture when the time comes. During his travels, Naruto continues his personal training obsessively. He pushes himself to access higher levels of the Nine Tails chakra, working up to 4 tails and sometimes 5. Each transformation grows more difficult to control as the beast's influence becomes overwhelming. At 5 tails, Naruto's consciousness starts slipping, his rational mind drowning in the fox's hatred and rage. He forces himself back from the edge repeatedly, understanding that losing control means failure. Kurama watches these attempts with growing interest. Most Jinchuriki lose themselves at 3 or 4 tails, becoming mindless beasts piloted by the tailed beast's consciousness. This boy maintains a thread of control even at 5 tails through sheer force of will and the conditioning Madara instilled. Kurama begins to respect this. If a beast can truly respect a human, Naruto is not weak like other humans. He understands power and is willing to pay the cost to wield it. Their conversations in the mindscape become less confrontational and more strategic. Kurama offers advice on chakra control, not because he likes his jailer, but because a stronger jailer means surviving long enough to see the infinite Tsukuyomi. Naruto's training also focuses on perfecting techniques that complement his role as a Madara-trained operative. He masters several fire-style jutsu from the Uchiha repertoire that Madara taught him. The Great Fireball technique becomes second nature, and he learns to chain it with shadow clone strategies for overwhelming offense. He develops his own variation of techniques, using shadow clones to create diversions while the real body strikes with fire jutsu, enhanced by the Nine Tails chakra. The combination of Uzumaki stamina, Nine Tails chakra, and Uchiha techniques creates a unique fighting style that few opponents can counter. Naruto also works on his sealing techniques, studying barrier creation and chakra suppression seals. These prove invaluable for concealing his presence when infiltrating hostile territory. A properly executed chakra suppression seal makes him virtually invisible to sensory ninja, appearing as nothing more than a civilian if anyone checks. At age 13, Naruto receives his first assignment directly from Obito. The Akatsuki needs information on Iwagakure's defenses and the movements of their two Jinchuriki, Roshi and Han. This intelligence will inform future capture operations. Naruto infiltrates the stone village over a period of 3 months, establishing himself as a traveling craftsman apprentice. The cover proves effective because Iwa has many such workers passing through for the ongoing reconstruction projects from previous wars. Naruto observes both Jinchuriki carefully. Roshi, the Four Tails Jinchuriki, is an older man who lives somewhat isolated from the village center, but is not actively shunned like Gaara. He trains younger shinobi occasionally, demonstrating fire and earth techniques enhanced by Son Goku's chakra. Han, the Five Tails Jinchuriki, is more reclusive and wears steam armor powered by Kokuo's chakra. Both Jinchuriki are experienced veterans with decades of combat knowledge. Naruto reports to Obito that capturing either target will require multiple Akatsuki members working in coordination. They are not unstable like Gaara or isolated like Utakata. They are skilled jonin with full support from their village. During this infiltration, Naruto has his first real combat encounter since leaving Madara's cavern. A group of rogue ninja operating near Iwagakure's borders attacks him, mistaking him for an easy target. The fight is brief and brutal. Naruto kills all 4 attackers without hesitation, using shadow clones to overwhelm their numbers and then finishing them with precise strikes to vital points. He feels nothing afterward, no guilt or hesitation. Madara's teachings echo in his mind. Mercy is weakness, hesitation is failure, and the mission matters more than any individual life. He disposes of the bodies thoroughly using fire jutsu, leaving no evidence of the encounter. This first kill marks a psychological milestone. Naruto has crossed the threshold from trained child soldier to active operative with blood on his hands. The transition feels natural because every part of his conditioning prepared him for exactly this moment. Obito begins deploying Naruto on increasingly complex operations over the next year. These missions involve gathering intelligence, eliminating witnesses who might compromise Akatsuki's secrecy, and testing new techniques in real combat situations. Naruto proves remarkably effective because his youth makes people underestimate him. Guards see a teenager and assume limited threat, only to die before they realize their mistake. Naruto develops a reputation among certain criminal elements as a blonde ghost who appears and disappears without warning, leaving only bodies behind. He never speaks to his targets, never explains why they must die. The efficiency is remarkable. Obito finds himself impressed despite initial skepticism. Madara truly did create the perfect weapon, a human being with extraordinary power and absolutely no moral constraints to limit its application. At age 14, Naruto's abilities have grown to the point where he can confidently access 4 tails of 9 tails chakra while maintaining control. His chakra reserves are enormous even for an Uzumaki, amplified by constant training and the 9 tails presence. He has killed over 30 people in various operations, each death teaching him something about human anatomy, combat psychology, and the effectiveness of different techniques. His understanding of sealing techniques has advanced to where he can create custom barriers and suppression seals for specific situations. His taijutsu incorporates elements of multiple styles, observed during his travels, blended into something uniquely his own. The shadow clone technique has become his signature move, capable of creating hundreds of clones for overwhelming force or precise infiltration. His fire jutsu can level buildings, and his wind chakra nature allows him to enhance close-range attacks with cutting power. By any objective measure, Naruto is now a Jonin-level combatant despite his age, and he continues growing stronger with every mission. Black Zetsu provides regular updates on the other Akatsuki members and their progress. The organization consists of powerful rogue ninja from various villages, each possessing unique abilities. Itachi Uchiha, Sasuke's brother who slaughtered the Uchiha clan, is among the most dangerous with his Mangekyo Sharingan, Kisame Hoshigaki wields the sentient sword Samehada and possesses massive chakra reserves. Deidara uses explosive clay for devastating attacks. Sasori, before his death, was a master puppeteer who turned himself into a living puppet. Kakuzu possesses 5 hearts and uses multiple elemental jutsu. Hidan wields a lethal scythe and is functionally immortal through his religious rituals. Pain, the supposed leader, possesses the Rinnegan and operates through 6 bodies simultaneously. These individuals represent the elite of the shinobi world's rogue elements. Naruto studies their abilities carefully through Black Zetsu's reports, understanding that he may need to work alongside them eventually. More importantly, he needs to be strong enough to survive if any of them turn hostile. The relationship between Naruto and Obito remains professional but distant. Obito sees Naruto as a useful tool for the plan but cannot connect with him on any emotional level because the boy has no emotions to connect with. Conversations are purely strategic. Naruto shows no curiosity about Obito's past or motivations beyond how they relate to operational efficiency. Obito sometimes wonders if Madara created something inhuman rather than simply molding a human. The boy shows no fear, no joy, no anger beyond tactical expressions designed to manipulate targets. He is utterly devoted to the infinite Tsukuyomi, not because he believes in it emotionally, but because his entire identity is built around completing the mission. Removing the mission would remove any sense of purpose or self. Obito recognizes this as both the ultimate success of Madara's conditioning and something deeply unsettling. At least Obito himself came to the plan through trauma and loss, experiencing human emotion before choosing detachment. Naruto never had that choice. He was shaped from clay into a specific form before he could ever become anything else. As Naruto approaches 15, the broader political situation in the shinobi world begins shifting in ways that affect the plan's timeline. Tensions rise between villages over border disputes and resource allocation. Small skirmishes break out between nation-states' samurai forces and occasionally involve hidden villages' ninja. Obito recognizes these tensions as opportunities. A destabilized world is easier to reshape. The Akatsuki begins more aggressive operations, capturing some minor-tailed beasts that were not sealed in human hosts, and starting preparations for larger Jinchuriki capture operations. Naruto is told to prepare for the next phase: active combat operations against major village assets. His training has been comprehensive, his field experience is growing, and his power continues expanding. The time is approaching when the shinobi world will learn that the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki not only survived, but was turned into their enemy. Konoha's greatest weapon will be turned against them. Naruto contemplates his position during meditation sessions in hidden safe houses between missions. He is 15 years old and has never experienced a normal childhood, never had friends, never felt love or genuine connection to another human being. Yet he feels no sense of loss because he has no frame of reference for what he is missing. The mission is everything. The infinite Tsukuyomi will save everyone by trapping them in perfect dreams. This is not opinion but fact in his worldview, because Madara's teachings form the foundation of his understanding of reality. Every experience since leaving the cavern has reinforced these lessons. The shinobi world is violent and cruel. Villages use children as soldiers. Innocent people die in pointless conflicts. The system is fundamentally broken. Only the infinite Tsukuyomi can fix it. Naruto does not hate the world or the people in it. He simply recognizes them as problems requiring a solution, and he is the instrument that will provide that solution. This cold certainty drives him forward without doubt or hesitation, making him perhaps the most dangerous individual in the entire shinobi world despite his youth. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the third saga of our What If timeline. Saga 3, the Jinchuriki hunt begins. In the original timeline, Naruto returned to Konoha at age 15 after 2.5 years of training with Jiraiya. The training journey had transformed him from an inexperienced genin into a capable shinobi with better chakra control, improved taijutsu, and stronger jutsu. He had learned to use the Rasengan, his father's signature technique, and gained better understanding of the Nine-Tails' power, though full control remained elusive. Upon returning, Naruto learned that the Akatsuki had begun actively hunting Jinchuriki to extract and seal the tailed beasts. The organization had already captured several beasts, and their next target was Gaara, the fifth Kazekage of Tsunagakure. Deidara and Sasori of the Akatsuki infiltrated the Sand Village and captured Gaara, extracting the one-tail Shukaku in a process that killed the young Kazekage. Naruto, along with Team Kakashi and Team Guy, rushed to rescue Gaara. The mission took them deep into enemy territory, where they fought the Akatsuki members. Sakura and Lady Chiyo fought Sasori, ultimately defeating the Puppet Master. Naruto and Kakashi confronted Deidara, though the explosive clay user escaped. Despite their efforts, they arrived too late to save Gaara from having his tailed beast extracted. However, Lady Chiyo sacrificed her own life to resurrect Gaara using a forbidden technique, restoring him, though the one tail was permanently lost to the Akatsuki. This mission marked the beginning of Naruto's understanding of the true threat Akatsuki posed. The organization was systematically hunting down all Jinchuriki, and Naruto himself was a target. Following the Kazekage rescue mission, Naruto continued training to grow stronger. Kakashi helped him develop the Rasen Shuriken, a technique that combined his wind chakra nature with the Rasengan to create a devastating attack. The technique initially damaged Naruto's own arm from the cellular destruction it caused, leading Tsunade to forbid its use. Naruto's team also gained a new member, Sai, who replaced Sasuke after his defection, and Yamato joined as a temporary leader who could suppress the Nine Tails chakra using his wood release. The team pursued leads on Sasuke's location, while also defending against Akatsuki's continued operations. Naruto encountered Akatsuki members multiple times, learning about their individual abilities and the scale of their power. The Akatsuki's systematic approach to capturing tailed beasts revealed their larger plan to resurrect the Ten Tails and cast the infinite Tsukuyomi. Pain, the organization's apparent leader, orchestrated operations with precision. Each Jinchuriki capture required careful planning because the beasts could not be sealed out of order. The Geto statue needed them sealed from one tail through nine tails in sequence. This meant Naruto, as the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, would be the final target. The organization captured the two tails from Yugito Nii, the three tails that had reformed in the wild, and continued working through the list. Each capture took tremendous effort, even with multiple S-rank missing nin working together. Jinchuriki were powerful in their own right, and many had achieved some level of cooperation with their tailed beasts. The process of extracting a tailed beast from its host was lengthy, requiring all Akatsuki members to gather at a location and channel their chakra through special seals for days. This vulnerability meant they needed to operate carefully to avoid interruption from the major villages. Naruto's personal growth accelerated as he faced increasingly dangerous opponents. His confrontation with Orochimaru showed how far he had come, as he demonstrated power that forced even the legendary Sannin to retreat. His battle against Pain after the Akatsuki leader destroyed Konoha, searching for the Nine Tails, represented a turning point. Naruto achieved Sage Mode through training at Mount Myoboku, combining natural energy with his chakra to reach new heights of power. He defeated Pain's 6 paths through strategy, determination, and the Nine Tails intervention when he nearly died. More importantly, his conversation with Nagato after the battle demonstrated Naruto's philosophy. He chose to break the cycle of hatred by forgiving Nagato for destroying his village and killing his mentor Jiraiya. This act of forgiveness convinced Nagato to use his remaining life force to resurrect everyone he had killed in Konoha. The confrontation solidified Naruto's path as someone who sought to understand enemies rather than simply destroy them, following Jiraiya's teachings about finding true peace. The what-if timeline diverges dramatically as Naruto, now 15 years old, receives confirmation from Obito that the Akatsuki is ready to begin systematic Jinchuriki captures. The organization has gathered intelligence on all targets, established extraction sites, and prepared operationally. Obito explains that the captures must happen in sequence, starting with the One Tail, and that Naruto's unique position as a Jinchuriki working for the organization provides strategic advantages. Naruto can approach other Jinchuriki without immediately triggering their defenses, because they will sense he is like them. He can infiltrate villages seeking the Jinchuriki without raising the same alarms an Akatsuki member would. Most crucially, Naruto can engage targets in ways that other Akatsuki members cannot, using tactics specific to understanding what it means to be a Jinchuriki. Obito assigns Naruto to work alongside Deidara and Sasori for the first capture operation targeting Gaara of Sunagakure. This will test Naruto's ability to work with other Akatsuki members and determine his effectiveness in active combat operations. Naruto meets Deidara and Sasori at a designated location in the desert outside Sunagakure's territory. Deidara is an explosive personality in every sense, a young man who treats his explosive clay as art and speaks constantly about the beauty of detonations. He views Naruto with suspicion initially because a 15-year-old blonde kid claiming to be Madara's personal project sounds absurd. Sasori, hidden within his puppet body Hiruko, says little but observes everything. The puppet master has lived for decades through forbidden techniques and has seen much in his long life. He recognizes something unsettling in the boy's eyes, an emptiness that reminds him of himself. Naruto explains the operational plan in clinical terms. They will infiltrate Sunagakure during the changing of guard shifts, locate Gaara, who lives in isolation even as Kazekage, and extract him from the village before Anbu can respond effectively. Deidara objects that this plan lacks the dramatic flair his art requires. Naruto responds that success matters more than spectacle, and that drawing attention increases risk unnecessarily. Sasori agrees with Naruto's assessment, and Deidara reluctantly accepts being outvoted. The infiltration of Sunagakure proceeds according to plan initially. Naruto uses a transformation jutsu to appear as a sand village chunin, allowing him to move through the village during evening hours. His chakra suppression seals make him virtually undetectable to sensory ninja. He locates Gaara's residence, confirming that Kazekage is alone preparing documents for the next day's meetings. Naruto signals Deidara and Sasori through a small clay bird Deidara provided. The two Akatsuki members approach from above on Deidara's larger clay bird, landing on the roof of Gaara's building. The moment they arrive, Gaara's automatic sand defense activates, sensing the hostile intent. Sand erupts from the gourd on Gaara's back and from surrounding areas, forming a protective barrier. Gaara emerges onto the roof, his eyes showing the familiar look of someone who has never known rest, the dark circles permanent from years of shukaku preventing sleep. He recognizes the Akatsuki cloaks immediately and realizes they have come for him. The alarm sounds throughout Sunagakure as Gaara's chakra spikes, alerting all shinobi to the Kazekage's danger. The battle that erupts showcases the power of multiple S-rank combatants clashing. Sasori releases iron sand from hidden mechanisms, the third Kazekage puppet's signature technique, allowing him to manipulate metallic particles into deadly weapons. Deidara launches explosive clay creatures that detonate against Gaara's sand shield, testing its defenses with progressively larger explosions. Gaara responds with waves of sand that seek to crush and bury his attackers, the One-Tail's chakra infusing his techniques with overwhelming force. Naruto joins the battle by creating dozens of shadow clones that attack from multiple angles, forcing Gaara to spread his sand defense thinner. The automatic defense handles most attacks, but the coordination between three skilled opponents creates openings. Naruto notices that Gaara's sand prioritizes threats based on proximity and lethality, meaning slower-moving attacks receive less attention. He adjusts his strategy accordingly, using clones to create distractions while positioning himself for precise strikes. Sand Village reinforcements arrive within minutes, led by Baki and several Anbu teams. The situation grows more complex as Sunagakure's shinobi join the battle to protect their Kazekage. Sasori responds by releasing additional puppets from his collection, creating a barrier of wooden bodies between the Akatsuki and the reinforcements. Deidara drops cluster bombs of explosive clay that force the sand ninja to scatter and focus on defense rather than offense. Naruto finds himself fighting alongside Akatsuki members against an entire hidden village, a situation that would have been unthinkable in the original timeline where he fought to protect villages. He feels no hesitation or moral conflict. These are obstacles preventing mission completion. He engages Anbu directly, his superior speed and power overwhelming Chunin and Jonin, who underestimate him based on age. his shadow clones create chaos in the sand ninja formations, while his real body presses the attack on Gaara. The tide turns when Naruto manages to land a Rasengan enhanced with the Nine Tails chakra against Gaara's sand shield. The spiraling chakra sphere tears through multiple layers of sand that would normally stop such attacks, the Nine Tails malevolent chakra disrupting Shukaku's defenses. The impact sends Gaara crashing into a building, his sand barely managing to cushion the blow. For the first time, Gaara bleeds from a wound on his shoulder where the sand failed to fully protect him. He stares at Naruto with recognition, sensing the Nine Tails chakra. Another Jinchuriki stands before him, but one who fights for the people hunting them. Gaara attempts to speak, to understand why another Jinchuriki would betray their kind, but Deidara uses this moment of distraction to drop his largest explosive clay creation directly onto Gaara's position. The massive detonation consumes an entire city block, and when the smoke clears, Gaara lies unconscious, his sand having exhausted itself defending against the overwhelming explosive force. Deidara's clay bird swoops down and grabs the unconscious Gaara. Sasori's puppets create a smokescreen, while Naruto's clones engage the remaining sand ninja to prevent pursuit. The three Akatsuki operatives retreat from Tsunagakure with their target secured, leaving behind a devastated village and dozens of injured defenders. The entire operation from infiltration to extraction took less than 30 minutes, a testament to careful planning and overwhelming force. Baki reports the failure to the Sand Village elders, explaining that the Akatsuki specifically targeted the Kazekage, and that one of the attackers appeared to be a teenage blonde boy wielding the Nine Tails chakra. This information reaches other villages within days, through the intelligence networks all hidden villages maintain. Konoha receives the report with particular interest because the description matches their missing Jinchuriki, though the idea seems impossible. The boy disappeared as an infant 15 years ago. How could he be working with Akatsuki? The extraction of Shukaku from Gaara takes place at a hidden Akatsuki base in a remote location. All organization members gather, projecting their chakra through the Gido statue using the magic lantern body technique. The process requires 3 days of continuous chakra channeling, during which the one tail is slowly drawn out of Gaara's body and sealed into the statue. Naruto observes the process carefully, noting how the extraction works and the strain it places on the Jinchuriki. Gaara's screams echo through the cavern as his very life force is torn away along with the tailed beast. The other Akatsuki members show no reaction to his suffering. Pain, speaking through his projection, notes that this is necessary for the greater goal of peace. Kisame jokes about the irony of the Jinchuriki's pain, bringing them closer to a world without pain. Itachi remains silent, his Sharingan observing everything with unreadable expression. Naruto watches Gaara die as the extraction completes. The sand that always protected him falls away lifeless. The youngest Kazekage in Tsunagakure's history dies far from his village, alone except for his enemies. Obito meets with Naruto privately after the successful capture, praising the operation's efficiency. He notes that Naruto's ability to overwhelm Gaara's sand defense with the Nine Tails enhanced Rasengan proved decisive. The other Akatsuki members were impressed with Naruto's performance, particularly Sasori, who rarely praises anyone. Obito explains that the next targets will be progressively more difficult. The two tails, Jinchuriki Yugido Ni, possesses full control of her beast and the backing of Kumogakure's military might. The Three Tails has reformed in the wild after Yagura's death, requiring a different approach to capture. Each subsequent target will test the Akatsuki's capabilities. Obito assigns Naruto to focus on intelligence gathering for the Two Tails and Three Tails, while other members handle the Four Tails and Five Tails captures. Naruto's unique abilities as a Jinchuriki make him invaluable for understanding how other hosts might respond in combat. News of Gaara's capture and death spreads through the shinobi world like wildfire. The five great nations recognize that the Akatsuki poses an existential threat. A missing nin organization has successfully infiltrated one of the hidden villages and extracted a Kage. The political ramifications are enormous. Tsunagakure allies with Konohagakure, formally strengthening their relationship out of shared concern. Kumogakure increases security around their two Jinchuriki dramatically. Iwagakure does the same for Roshi and Han. Kirigakure focuses on tracking the reformed Three Tails to capture it before Akatsuki can. The shinobi world begins mobilizing for what many believe will escalate into another great ninja war. The Akatsuki represents a common enemy that might actually unite the villages for the first time in history. Intelligence agencies share information about known Akatsuki members, pooling resources to identify weaknesses and counter strategies. Konoha's response to the reports about the blonde Jinchuriki working with Akatsuki causes turmoil within the village leadership. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, now in his final years, confronts the possibility that Naruto Uzumaki survived and was turned against the village. Danzo argues that this confirms his fears about Jinchuriki reliability and advocates for immediate elimination orders. The village elders debate whether the reports are even accurate, whether this could truly be the same child who disappeared as an infant. Kakashi Hatake, upon hearing the description of the attacks used, recognizes the combination of shadow clones and the Rasengan, techniques that might have been taught to the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Jiraiya, when consulted, expresses deep concern. If Naruto was raised by someone hostile to Konoha, the boy's potential as an Uzumaki and Jinchuriki makes him incredibly dangerous. Worse, if Naruto was the one who helped kill Gaara, he has already crossed lines that may be impossible to return from. Over the following months, the Akatsuki systematically captures the Two Tails, Three Tails, and Four Tails. Each operation demonstrates the organization's power and coordination. Hidan and Kakuzu capture Yugido-ni after a brutal battle that devastates a significant portion of Kumogakure's outlying territory. Deidara and Obito capture the Three Tails in a lake where it had taken residence, using a combination of explosive techniques and spatial temporal jutsu to overwhelm the beast. Kisame and Itachi capture Roshi of Iwagakure, with Kisame's Samahata proving particularly effective at absorbing and countering the Four Tails chakra. Each extraction follows the same pattern: 3 days of the Akatsuki members channeling their chakra while the Jinchuriki dies slowly. The shinobi world reels from these losses, realizing that their individual villages cannot stop this organization. Discussions begin about forming a unified response. Naruto participates in several of these operations, either directly or in support roles. His presence becomes known to the shinobi world through survivor reports and intelligence gathering. The blonde teenager with whisker marks who wields the Nine Tails chakra and fights for Akatsuki becomes a recognized threat. Bounties are placed on his head by multiple villages. Bingo books add his entry with special warnings about his abilities. Konoha issues formal declarations that Naruto Uzumaki is to be considered an S-rank missing nin and traitor to the village, despite never officially being a Konoha ninja. The irony is not lost on those who remember the search for the missing infant. The child they failed to protect has become their enemy. Jiraiya takes personal responsibility for investigating Naruto, believing that perhaps there is still some way to reach him, to understand what happened and potentially bring him back to the light. Naruto's power continues growing through combat experience and training. His mastery of the Nine Tails chakra reaches the point where he can manifest 5 tails reliably while maintaining control. The red chakra cloaks grant him speed comparable to Jonin with body flicker techniques, and strength sufficient to destroy buildings with physical blows. His Rasengan variations include larger versions and wind chakra enhanced forms that can cut through nearly any defense. His shadow clone usage has become so refined that he can coordinate hundreds of clones simultaneously in complex battle strategies. His sealing knowledge allows him to create barriers that even skilled Jonin struggle to break. By any objective measure, Naruto, at 16 years old, is among the most dangerous combatants in the world, combining youth's vitality with skills that took most shinobi decades to develop. The Akatsuki members acknowledge him as a peer rather than a subordinate, recognizing that he could hold his own against most of them in single combat. The confrontation that changes everything occurs when Naruto encounters Jiraiya during an intelligence-gathering mission in a neutral territory. Jiraiya has been tracking Akatsuki movements and following leads about Naruto specifically. The two meet in a small town, and Jiraiya recognizes Naruto immediately from descriptions and the whisker marks inherited from being the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Jiraiya approaches carefully, introducing himself as someone who knew Naruto's parents. He explains that he was Minato's teacher and Naruto's godfather, that he was supposed to help raise Naruto but failed because the boy disappeared. Jiraiya's voice carries genuine regret and pain as he speaks about the years searching for any trace, the guilt of failing his student's final request. He tells Naruto about Minato and Kushina, describing their personalities and how much they loved their unborn son. He explains that Minato sealed the Nine-Tails into Naruto, believing the village would honor him as a hero, never imagining what actually happened. Naruto listens to all of this, with complete emotional detachment. When Jiraiya finishes, Naruto responds in a flat voice that Madara already explained everything about his parents and Konoha. The fourth Hokage sealed a tailed beast into his infant son and died, leaving that child to be used as a weapon by the village. Konoha would have raised him as a pariah and a tool, no different from how Gaara was treated in Sunagakure. Madara saved him from that fate and showed him the truth about the shinobi world. The villages perpetuate a broken system that causes endless suffering. The infinite Tsukuyomi will save everyone by granting them perfect peace in dreams. This is not ideology, but simple fact. Jiraiya tries to argue against this reasoning, explaining that the world has problems, but that giving up on reality in favor of illusion is not the answer. He speaks about Naruto's parents' dreams for him, about the will of fire, about the possibility of genuine change through understanding and cooperation between people. Naruto counters every point with cold logic. The will of fire is propaganda to make shinobi sacrifice themselves for a village that does not value them. Understanding between people is impossible because human nature is fundamentally flawed and selfish. Every attempt to create lasting peace has failed, leading to more wars with each generation. The infinite Tsukuyomi is not giving up, but rather accepting reality and providing the only solution that actually works. Jiraiya realizes with growing horror that he is not arguing with someone who was brainwashed, but someone who genuinely believes what he is saying through years of systematic conditioning. Naruto has no emotional attachment to Konoha, to his parents' memory, or to the concept of bonds that Jiraiya tries to appeal to. The conversation ends when Naruto states plainly that they are enemies, and that if Jiraiya interferes with the plan, Naruto will kill him without hesitation. Jiraiya sees in Naruto's eyes that this is not an empty threat but a statement of fact. The encounter devastates Jiraiya emotionally. He reports back to Konoha that Naruto is beyond reasoning, that whoever raised him created someone fundamentally opposed to everything the villages stand for. Jiraiya explains Naruto's beliefs about the infinite Tsukuyomi and how this aligns with Akatsuki's ultimate goal. The revelation that Akatsuki seeks to put the entire world under genjutsu forces the villages to take the threat even more seriously. Hiruzen Sarutobi makes the difficult decision to formally declare that Naruto must be stopped by any means necessary. The third Hokage had hoped that perhaps the missing Jinchuriki could be saved, but Jiraiya's report makes clear that salvation may not be possible. Danzo pushes for immediate elimination orders, arguing that a hostile Nine-Tails Jinchuriki represents the greatest threat Konoha has ever faced. The village that lost Naruto 15 years ago now must prepare to fight him. As the Akatsuki continues capturing tailed beasts, Naruto's role becomes increasingly central to the organization's operations. His ability to fight other Jinchuriki on equal terms makes him invaluable. His strategic mind, shaped by Madara's teachings and Black Zetsu's guidance, contributes to operational planning. His dedication to the mission never wavers regardless of circumstances. Other Akatsuki members begin treating him as Madara's true successor rather than simply another asset. Pain acknowledges Naruto's importance to the plan during private conversations with Obito. Konan, Pain's partner, finds Naruto unsettling because he shows no signs of the trauma and pain that drove most Akatsuki members to join the organization. He simply exists to complete the mission, nothing more. This single-minded purpose makes him perhaps the most reliable member of the entire organization. The capture of the 5 tails from Han proceeds with Naruto taking a lead role. Han's steam armor provides formidable defense, but Naruto's 9 tails chakra can overwhelm the 5 tails power through sheer volume. The battle takes place in Iwagakure's territory, with Naruto fighting Han directly, while other Akatsuki members prevent interference from Iwa Ninja. Han attempts to reason with Naruto during their fight, asking why a fellow Jinchuriki would betray his kind. Naruto responds that Jinchuriki are tools for their villages, and that the infinite Tsukuyomi will free everyone, including the tailed beasts, from the current system. Han argues that he found purpose and acceptance in Iwagakure, that being a Jinchuriki does not have to mean suffering. Naruto dismisses this as Stockholm Syndrome, a prisoner defending their jailer. The fight ends with Han's defeat and subsequent capture. During the extraction, Han's final words curse Naruto for abandoning the very thing that makes them human, the ability to choose connection over isolation. Naruto reflects on these words briefly before dismissing them. Connection is weakness. Madara taught this truth, and every observation of the shinobi world confirms it. People kill each other over bonds, over perceived slights to loved ones, over defending those they care about. Wars start because of attachments to clans, villages, and nations. The infinite Tsukuyomi will eliminate these destructive attachments by giving everyone perfect solitary dreams where they can have whatever they desire without conflict. Naruto cannot understand why people resist this solution. It is logical, efficient, and will end all suffering. The fact that it requires putting the world under permanent genjutsu is irrelevant. Reality has proven itself incapable of producing genuine peace. The dream world will be better than reality, therefore it is the correct choice. This reasoning seems self-evident to Naruto because he has never experienced genuine connection to another person and therefore cannot comprehend what would be lost. By the time Naruto reaches 17 years old, the Akatsuki has captured 6 of the 9-tailed beasts. Only the 6 tails, 7 tails, 8 tails, and 9 tails remain. The shinobi world has begun organizing a unified response, with the 5 great nations holding emergency summits to discuss forming an alliance. The idea is unprecedented because the villages have been enemies for generations. Kumogakure and Konohagakure particularly have a history of conflict and distrust. However, the Akatsuki threat supersedes traditional rivalries. If the organization succeeds in capturing all 9-tailed beasts, they will have power sufficient to threaten all nations simultaneously. Intelligence suggests the Akatsuki's leader, Pain, possesses the legendary Rinnegan, granting abilities far beyond normal shinobi. Madara Uchiha's name surfaces in intelligence reports as potentially connected to the organization's true leadership. The villages realize they face not just a rogue nin organization, but a coordinated force with specific world-changing goals. Naruto trains obsessively in preparation for the final captures, knowing that the 8 tails and his own 9 tails will be the most difficult targets. Killer Bee has achieved perfect synchronization with the 8 tails, making him extraordinarily powerful. Capturing Naruto's own 9 tails requires a different approach because Naruto will not willingly give up Kurama. Obito explains that Naruto will need to be captured and the 9 tails extracted after all other beasts are sealed. This means Naruto will die when the plan reaches completion. Naruto accepts this without hesitation. His life is meaningless compared to the mission. He has existed solely to complete the infinite Tsukuyomi. Death in service of that goal is acceptable. Madara raised him to understand that individual survival is irrelevant to the greater purpose. Obito finds this acceptance both useful and disturbing. Even Obito, who gave up on the world after Rin's death, sometimes feels doubt or hesitation. Naruto feels nothing but certainty. The saga ends with the shinobi world on the brink of the 4th Great Ninja War. The villages finalize their alliance, creating the allied shinobi forces to counter the Akatsuki threat. Ninja from different nations who have been enemies for generations now train together and prepare to fight side by side. The target is clear: destroy the Akatsuki and prevent the Ten Tails' resurrection. Intelligence indicates that Naruto Uzumaki, the missing 9 Tails Jinchuriki, is among the Akatsuki's most dangerous members. Orders go out to all allied forces that Naruto is to be captured or killed on sight. His former village of Konoha contributes forces led by Kakashi Hatake, who carries the guilt of failing to protect his teacher's son. The stage is set for the conflict that will determine the future of the entire shinobi world. Naruto stands on one side, completely dedicated to casting the infinite Tsukuyomi. The allied shinobi forces stand on the other, fighting to preserve reality despite its flaws. Neither side can compromise because their goals are mutually exclusive. War becomes inevitable. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the fourth saga of our What If timeline. Saga 4. The Fourth Shinobi World War. In the original timeline, the Fourth Shinobi World War began when Obito, posing as Madara Uchiha, declared war on the Five Great Nations after they refused to surrender the Eight Tails and Nine Tails Jinchuriki. The allied shinobi forces formed in response, uniting all 5 hidden villages under a single command structure for the first time in history. The Fourth Raikage served as supreme commander, with the forces divided into 5 specialized divisions plus support units. Gaara, having survived his capture and extraction thanks to Lady Chiyo's sacrifice, was appointed commander of the allied forces despite his youth, earning respect through his leadership and personal transformation from weapon to protector. The war represented an unprecedented level of cooperation between villages that had been enemies for generations. Shinobi from Konoha, Suna, Kumo, Iwa, and Kiri fought side by side against the common threat of Akatsuki and the Ten Tails. The war's first phase involved Kabuto Yakushi's Edo Tensei technique, which resurrected thousands of deceased shinobi as immortal warriors under his control. These reanimated forces included legendary ninja from previous generations, former Kage, members of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist, and powerful shinobi who had died in past wars. The allied forces had to battle against their own predecessors and heroes, making the conflict deeply personal and psychologically difficult. Notable confrontations included Gaara facing his reanimated father, the Fourth Kazekage, and coming to terms with his past, Darui of Kumogakure fighting the infamous Kinkaku and Ginkaku who once possessed Nine Tails chakra, and various divisions engaging reanimated Akatsuki members. The Edo Tensei army created a nearly endless enemy force because the reanimated shinobi regenerated from any damage and possessed unlimited stamina. Only sealing techniques could permanently remove them from the battlefield. Naruto's role in the original war was transformative. Initially kept in a secret location on the island Turtle to prevent Akatsuki from capturing him, Naruto eventually joined the battlefield after sensing the conflict through his connection to the tailed beasts. His arrival energized the allied forces, and his newly mastered Nine Tails chakra mode allowed him to distribute Kurama's chakra to thousands of shinobi simultaneously, greatly enhancing their combat abilities. Naruto's presence on the battlefield turned the tide in numerous engagements. He fought against the reanimated Jinchuriki, demonstrating his superior control of tailed beast power. His confrontation with Nagato's Edo Tensei form allowed him to release the Rinnegan user from Kabuto's control through conversation and understanding. Naruto's philosophy of never giving up and protecting his comrades inspired countless shinobi who had given up hope. His famous speech about shouldering everyone's hatred and pain, delivered to the shinobi who once feared him as the Nine Tails, unified the allied forces around a common purpose beyond mere survival. The war escalated dramatically when Obito managed to capture portions of the Eight Tails and Nine Tails chakra, enough to perform an incomplete resurrection of the Ten Tails. The appearance of this ancient beast changed the entire nature of the conflict. Obito and later Madara Uchiha, resurrected through Kabuto's Edo Tensei before being fully restored to life, fought against the entire allied shinobi forces. Naruto and Sasuke, who rejoined the conflict to fight against the infinite Tsukuyomi after learning the truth about Itachi, were the only ones capable of truly threatening Madara. The battles reached godlike scales, with techniques that reshaped landscapes and threatened to destroy everything. Madara captured all 9 tailed beasts and became the 10 Tails Jinchuriki, activating the infinite Tsukuyomi and putting the entire world under genjutsu. Only through the intervention of Sasuke's Rinnegan, which protected Team 7, and the eventual revelation of Black Zetsu's true nature and Kaguya Otsutsuki's resurrection, was the plan ultimately stopped. Naruto and Sasuke defeated Kaguya, sealed her away, and released everyone from the infinite Tsukuyomi, saving the world through their combined power and the bonds they had formed throughout their lives. The What If timeline begins with Obito making his declaration of war at the Five-Cage Summit, but this time Naruto stands beside him. The blonde 17-year-old with whisker marks and cold blue eyes represents the Nine Tails Jinchuriki that should have been the Allied forces' greatest asset. Instead, he is their enemy. Obito removes his spiral mask, revealing his Sharingan and his true identity as Uchiha Obito to the assembled Kage. He explains the Eye of the Moon plan in detail, describing how the infinite Tsukuyomi will save the world by granting everyone perfect dreams. Naruto speaks for the first time at the summit, his voice carrying through the hall with absolute certainty. He states that the current shinobi system is fundamentally broken and that the Akatsuki has already captured 6 of the 9-tailed beasts. The choice for the Kage is simple. Surrender the 8 tails and 9 tails peacefully and allow the plan to proceed or face war. The Kage, particularly the 4th Raikage A, who is protective of his brother Killer B, refuse vehemently. A declares that he will never surrender his brother to these criminals, and the other Kage agree despite recognizing the enormous threat. The allied shinobi forces mobilize with the knowledge that they face not only the Akatsuki organization but also the Nine Tails Jinchuriki as an active combatant for the enemy. This changes everything about their strategy and morale. In the original timeline, Naruto represented hope and the possibility of defeating Akatsuki. In this timeline, he represents one of their greatest threats. Intelligence reports from survivors of previous encounters describe Naruto's abilities in terrifying detail. He can create hundreds of shadow clones simultaneously, each capable of fighting at Jonin level. His mastery of the Nine Tails chakra allows him to manifest multiple tails, granting him speed and strength beyond most shinobi. His Rasengan techniques can tear through nearly any defense. Perhaps most frightening, he shows no hesitation or mercy in combat, killing efficiently without emotion. The allied forces must plan specifically to counter a hostile Jinchuriki who knows all standard shinobi tactics and has been trained by someone with decades of combat experience. The war begins with Kabuto's Edo Tensei army attacking across multiple fronts, forcing the allied shinobi forces to spread their divisions thin. The reanimated shinobi create chaos and heavy casualties, pushing the allied forces into defensive positions. Naruto makes his first major appearance on the battlefield 3 days into the war, arriving at the location of the 2nd Division commanded by Kitsuchi of Iwagakure. The division consists of close-range combat specialists who were expecting to face White Zetsu forces and reanimated enemies. Instead, Naruto appears alone, walking calmly through the destruction left by previous battles. Kitsuchi recognizes him from intelligence reports and immediately orders his entire division to focus fire. Hundreds of shinobi launch coordinated attacks from all directions, but Naruto creates an equal number of shadow clones, and the battlefield erupts into chaos. Each clone fights with lethal efficiency, using kunai, taijutsu, and jutsu to kill multiple opponents before dispersing. The real Naruto taps into the Nine Tails chakra, manifesting 4 tails of red chakra that form a cloak around his body. His speed increases to the point where most shinobi cannot track his movements. He tears through the 2nd Division's formations like a force of nature, his chakra-enhanced physical strikes, shattering bones, and his Rasengan techniques creating craters in the earth. Kitsuchi attempts to counter with earth release techniques, raising massive stone walls and changing the terrain to limit Naruto's mobility. Naruto responds by having his clones demolish every obstacle while his real body hunts down the division's commanders. The battle lasts only 20 minutes before Kitsuchi orders a full retreat. The 2nd Division has lost over 300 shinobi, and Naruto stands in the center of the battlefield unmarked and unconcerned. He deliberately let them retreat to spread fear and the message that fighting him is suicide. The Allied Forces Intelligence Network receives reports of the massacre within hours, and morale takes a significant hit. Killer B, stationed in a hidden location to prevent his capture, senses the Nine Tails chakra being used and recognizes a kindred spirit being perverted for war. He demands to be allowed to fight, arguing that another Jinchuriki is the only one who can match Naruto. The 4th Raikage initially refuses, not wanting to risk his brother, but eventually agrees when reports indicate that Naruto is single-handedly destroying entire divisions. Killer Bee joins the battlefield, and the two Jinchuriki finally meet in a remote valley cleared by Naruto's previous attacks. Killer Bee tries to reach Naruto through his rapping, a technique he uses to connect with people and spread joy. He freestyles about how Jinchuriki should stick together, how they understand each other's pain, how they can choose to protect rather than destroy. Naruto listens to the entire performance without expression, then states flatly that Killer Bee is delusional. There is no kinship between them. Killer Bee chose to serve a village that sealed a beast inside him. Naruto serves the only plan that will actually save the world. The conversation is over. The battle between Naruto and Killer Bee shakes the earth. Both Jinchuriki transform, with Killer Bee fully manifesting the Eight Tails Gyuki as a massive bull-octopus hybrid, while Naruto cloaks himself in 5 tails of the 9 Tails chakra. The clash of their power creates shockwaves that level forests and split mountains. Killer Bee's perfect synchronization with Gyuki grants him incredible coordination and tactical options, using the 8 Tails' multiple limbs to attack from numerous angles while launching tailed beast bombs. Naruto counters with overwhelming numbers of shadow clones and precise application of the 9 Tails' superior chakra reserves. The 9 Tails has more power than the 8 Tails by nature, and Naruto's efficient use of that power keeps him in the fight despite Killer Bee's superior cooperation with his beast. Kurama, inside Naruto's seal, finds the battle interesting. Gyuki and Killer Bee work together as partners, something Kurama and Naruto have never achieved. Yet Naruto's cold efficiency is winning through sheer refusal to quit. The battle turns decisively when Obito appears on the battlefield using Kamui, his spatial temporal technique allowing him to phase through Killer Bee's attacks. With 2 opponents, Killer Bee cannot maintain his defense. Naruto's 9 Tails enhanced Rasengan combined with Obito's Kamui creating openings proves too much. Killer Bee takes critical damage and is forced to retreat, leaving behind a tentacle as a decoy while his real body escapes using a substitution technique he prepared in advance. Naruto and Obito capture the tentacle, which contains a small portion of the 8 Tails' chakra. While not ideal, it proves sufficient for their purposes. The partial 8 Tails chakra is sealed into the Gedo statue, leaving only the 9 Tails required to complete the resurrection of the 10 Tails. Killer Bee's escape, though successful, comes at tremendous cost. He is severely injured and cannot fight at full capacity for weeks. The 4th Raikage, upon learning his brother nearly died, vows to kill Naruto personally. The Allied forces struggle desperately to stop the 10 Tails' resurrection. They launch coordinated assaults on known Akatsuki positions, but Obito's Kamui and Naruto's combat ability make direct confrontation nearly impossible. The Allied forces' strategy shifts to sealing techniques and attempts to separate Naruto from the other Akatsuki members. But Naruto's awareness of standard shinobi tactics allows him to counter most approaches. His training under Madara included extensive study of how villages operate, what strategies they employ, and how to defeat large numbers of opponents. Naruto systematically dismantles the Allied forces' formations, targeting commanders and disrupting supply lines. His shadow clones infiltrate camps disguised as Allied shinobi, gathering intelligence and sabotaging operations. The psychological impact of fighting a Jinchuriki, who should have been their hero, devastates morale. Kakashi Hatake leads a special strike team specifically tasked with confronting Naruto, believing that perhaps someone who knew his father could reach him. The team includes several Jonin and ANBU members, all selected for their experience fighting high-level opponents. They corner Naruto in a valley after tracking his chakra signature for days. Kakashi removes his forehead protector, revealing his Sharingan, and introduces himself as Minato's student and Naruto's father's pupil. He explains that Minato wanted Naruto to be seen as a hero, that his sacrifice was meant to protect Naruto and the village. Kakashi speaks about the will of fire, about how Minato believed in the next generation and wanted Naruto to experience the bonds and friendships that make life meaningful. He offers Naruto a chance to stop fighting, to come back to Konoha and learn about his heritage. Kakashi's voice carries genuine emotion, the guilt of failing to protect his teacher's son weighing heavily. Naruto's response crushes any hope Kakashi held. He explains that Madara told him everything about Minato and the Will of Fire. His father was a fool who believed in a broken system and paid with his life for that belief. The Will of Fire is propaganda designed to make shinobi sacrifice themselves for others' benefit. Bonds are chains that drag people down and cause suffering when those bonds break. Kakashi's offer is meaningless because Naruto has no desire to join a village that would have made him a weapon. He has a purpose, completing the infinite Tsukuyomi and saving the world from itself. Kakashi and his team have two choices: retreat or die. Kakashi, recognizing that words will not reach Naruto, signals his team to attack. The battle is brief and brutal. Naruto's shadow clones overwhelm the numerical advantage, while his real body targets Kakashi directly. The Sharingan's predictive abilities help Kakashi survive the initial assault, but he cannot match Naruto's speed or power when the Nine-Tails chakra manifests. Kakashi's team is decimated, with only Kakashi himself surviving by using Kamui at the last moment to escape. He returns to the Allied Forces headquarters broken, reporting that Naruto is beyond salvation. The partial Ten-Tails is resurrected using the captured tailed beast chakra, including the portion from Killer Bee's tentacle and chakra from the Gold and Silver brothers, who once consumed Nine-Tails chakra and survived. The incomplete Ten-Tails is still a monster of immense power, a massive creature that dwarfs even the largest tailed beasts. Its appearance on the battlefield causes panic among the Allied forces, who had hoped to prevent this stage of the plan. Obito and Madara, who was resurrected through Kabuto's Edo Tensei and then restored to full life through the Rinnegan's Outer Path technique, work together to control the beast. Naruto stands with them, channeling Nine-Tails chakra to help stabilize the incomplete Ten-Tails. Madara sees Naruto for the first time since his death and acknowledges him with rare approval. The boy became exactly what Madara intended, a perfect weapon dedicated to the mission. Madara comments that Naruto surpassed even Obito as a student, never wavering or doubting the plan's necessity. The allied shinobi forces launch their final desperate assault, throwing everything they have at the Akatsuki position. The five Kage themselves join the battle, recognizing that if the Ten-Tails reaches full power, the war is lost. The Kage engage Madara directly, while thousands of allied shinobi attack the Ten-Tails and attempt to separate Naruto from the beast. The battles reach apocalyptic scale. Madara fights all five Kage simultaneously, demonstrating why he was feared as the ghost of the Uchiha. His perfect Susanoo dwarfs mountains, his wood release techniques create forests in seconds, and his combat experience from decades of warfare makes him virtually untouchable. The Kage push themselves beyond their limits, combining their strongest techniques, but Madara systematically dismantles their strategies. Tsunade heals injuries faster than Madara can inflict them until he targets her specifically with techniques that prevent regeneration. Gaara's sand provides defense for all five Kage, but eventually runs out against Madara's relentless assault. Naruto, meanwhile, faces an army of allied shinobi, attempting to seal him or separate him from the Ten-Tails. His combat ability has reached its peak, and he fights with the cold efficiency Madara instilled in him from childhood. Hundreds of shinobi fall to his shadow clones, and Nine-Tails enhanced attacks. He shows no fatigue despite fighting continuously for hours because his Uzumaki stamina and the Nine-Tails chakra grants him nearly limitless endurance. Various shinobi attempt to reach him emotionally during the battle. Shikamaru Nara, leading a tactical unit, tries to engage him in conversation while setting up shadow binding techniques. He explains that Naruto could have been their friend, that they're the same age and could have been teammates. Naruto responds that friendship is a liability and traps are predictable. He escapes Shikamaru's shadow binding, using a substitution technique at the exact moment of capture and kills half of Shikamaru's unit in retaliation. Shikamaru survives only because reinforcements arrive, and he retreats with the knowledge that Naruto is not just powerful, but tactically brilliant. The turning point comes when Madara decides to become the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki himself, absorbing the incomplete beast into his body despite the risks. The transformation grants him power beyond anything seen in the war so far. His appearance changes, gaining the characteristics of the Sage of Six Paths, and his techniques reach godlike levels. The allied forces cannot scratch him. The 5 Kage lie defeated, kept alive only by Tsunade's last-ditch healing, but unable to continue fighting. The allied shinobi forces formations collapse under the weight of facing both Madara as the Ten Tails Jinchuriki and Naruto as a fully unleashed Nine Tails host. Madara begins the final preparations for the infinite Tsukuyomi, using his Rinnegan to reflect the technique off the moon. The shinobi world faces the reality that they have lost. The plan that began with Naruto's kidnapping 15 years ago is about to succeed. Sasuke Uchiha arrives on the battlefield at this critical moment, having learned the truth about Itachi and the Uchiha massacre from a reanimated Itachi who escaped Kabuto's control. Sasuke brings with him the reanimated forms of the 4 previous Hokage, including Minato Namikaze, resurrected through Orochimaru's advanced Edo Tensei technique. Minato sees Naruto for the first time, recognizing his son in the blonde teenager wielding the Nine Tails chakra. The moment should be emotional, a father seeing his son after 17 years. Instead, Minato watches in horror as Naruto fights to end the world, showing no recognition or care that his father stands before him. Minato tries to speak to Naruto, calling out to him, but Naruto's response is colder than anything Minato imagined. He tells Minato that Madara explained everything, that Minato's sacrifice was wasted, and that father and son have nothing to discuss. Minato, fighting back tears, realizes he failed his son in the worst possible way. The village he trusted to protect Naruto allowed him to be taken and corrupted beyond recognition. The 4 Hokage engage in battle to stop the infinite Tsukuyomi, with Minato specifically facing Naruto directly. Father fights son across the ruined battlefield, Minato's Flying Thunder God technique, matching Naruto's speed, while their respective Rasengan variations clash in explosions of chakra. Minato pleads with Naruto between exchanges, trying to explain that his and Kushina's love for him was real, that they wanted him to be happy and safe. Naruto responds that love is a weakness that made Minato sacrifice his life for nothing. The current shinobi world proves that Minato's ideals were wrong. Madara's way is correct. The conversation never reaches Naruto emotionally because he has no emotional connection to the concept of parental love. Minato represents a biological origin point, but nothing more meaningful than that. The fight ends when Madara intervenes, separating Minato from Naruto and dismissing the 4th Hokage with contempt. Madara tells Minato that he failed as both a Hokage and a father, and that Naruto represents what happens when someone is raised with truth instead of sentiment. The infinite Tsukuyomi activates as Madara's Rinnegan pattern reflects off the moon, spreading across the world. The Genjutsu catches everyone who sees the light, trapping them in perfect individual dreams. Allied shinobi collapse where they stand, their consciousness pulled into illusions tailored to their deepest desires. Tsunade dreams of Dan and Nawaki alive, of a Konoha that never lost its loved ones. Kakashi dreams of Team Minato intact, of Obito and Rin surviving and becoming Jonin alongside him. Shikamaru dreams of a peaceful world where he can be lazy without guilt. Across the entire shinobi world, people experience their perfect lives while their real bodies are slowly absorbed into the god tree that emerges from the 10 tails. The roots wrap around every captured person, draining their chakra to sustain the genjutsu indefinitely. Madara surveys his success with satisfaction. The infinite Tsukuyomi is complete. The world is saved from itself through forced peace. Naruto watches the technique take effect, seeing the shinobi who fought against him collapse into their dreams. He feels no triumph or satisfaction, only acknowledgement that the mission is complete. Madara approaches him, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder in the closest thing to affection the old Uchiha ever showed. Madara thanks Naruto for his dedication and explains that now only one step remains, extracting the Nine Tails and sealing it into the God Tree to stabilize the infinite Tsukuyomi permanently. Naruto accepts this without hesitation. His life's purpose was to enable the infinite Tsukuyomi. Now that it is active, his continued existence serves no function. Madara begins the extraction process using the Rinnegan's power, and Naruto feels Kurama's chakra being torn from his body. The pain is immense but irrelevant. The fox resists, not wanting to be sealed again, but Madara's Rinnegan overrides any resistance. Kurama looks at Naruto one final time and recognizes that this human was different from all others. He never wanted power for himself, or sought to use the fox for personal gain. He simply did what he believed was necessary, and now he dies for that belief, without fear or regret. But Black Zetsu, who has been manipulating events for 1,000 years, reveals its true nature at this moment. The creature is not Madara's will manifested, but rather Kaguya Otsutsuki's creation, designed to eventually resurrect her. Black Zetsu strikes, absorbing Madara and using the Ten Tails Jinchuriki's body as a vessel to bring back Kaguya. The ancient goddess emerges, possessing power beyond anything Madara achieved. She looks at Naruto, seeing in him the Nine Tails chakra and recognizing him as a threat to her plans. However, Naruto is weakened from the Nine Tails extraction process and cannot defend himself effectively. Kaguya's appearance changes everything because even Obito had not known about Black Zetsu's true nature. The plan they worked toward for years was actually serving Kaguya's resurrection. Sasuke and the remaining fighters, who were protected from the infinite Tsukuyomi by Sasuke's Susanoo, realize they must defeat Kaguya to save the world, even though the world is already trapped in Genjutsu. The final battle sees Sasuke facing Kaguya with the help of the Hokage, particularly his father Minato, who is fighting to save the world his son helped trap. Naruto, dying from the Nine Tails extraction, can only watch as the battle unfolds across dimensions. Kaguya demonstrates absolute power, shifting between her various dimensions and utilizing techniques that manipulate space-time itself. Sasuke's Rinnegan allows him to follow her dimensional shifts, while Minato's Flying Thunder God provides mobility. The battle rages for what feels like days as they chase Kaguya through her personal dimensions. Eventually, through combined effort and Sasuke awakening additional Rinnegan abilities through extreme stress, they manage to seal Kaguya using a technique the Sage of Six Paths designed specifically for this purpose. With Kaguya sealed, the infinite Tsukuyomi should theoretically end, but it does not automatically dispel because Madara's chakra and the God Tree sustain it. Naruto, barely alive without the Nine Tails, makes a final decision. He knows he is dying and that his life is measured in minutes. Kurama's extraction leaves a void in his chakra system that is killing him from the inside. He could try to release the infinite Tsukuyomi, to undo everything he worked for, but doing so would mean admitting Madara was wrong. Naruto faces the fundamental question of his existence. Was everything he believed a lie? He thinks about the shinobi world he observed during his missions, the violence and suffering he witnessed. He thinks about Madara's teachings and the logic behind the infinite Tsukuyomi. He thinks about the people now trapped in perfect dreams, experiencing happiness they never found in reality. In his final moments, Naruto chooses to believe that Madara was right. The people in the infinite Tsukuyomi are happier than they were in reality. Mercy is giving them those dreams permanently. He uses his remaining chakra to reinforce the technique, making it harder to dispel even after his death. Sasuke and Minato return from sealing Kaguya to find Naruto dying, his body failing from the Nine Tails extraction. Minato rushes to his son's side, cradling him for the first and last time. He begs Naruto to help them release the infinite Tsukuyomi, explaining that those dreams are prisons and that real life, despite its pain, is what makes people human. Naruto looks at his father with eyes that are already glazing over and says that Minato never understood. The dreams are better than reality. People deserve peace even if it is artificial. Madara was right. Minato, tears streaming down his face, tells Naruto that he loves him and that he is sorry for everything. Naruto responds that love is what causes suffering and that he never needed it. His final words before dying are that the mission is complete and that the world is finally saved from itself. Naruto Uzumaki dies at 17 years old, never having experienced genuine human connection, completely convinced until his last breath that he did the right thing. Minato holds his son's body and weeps for the child who was stolen, the boy who could have been a hero, and the young man who became history's greatest villain while believing himself to be its savior. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the fifth saga of our What If timeline. Saga 5, The World of Dreams. In the original timeline, Naruto and Sasuke worked together to defeat Kaguya Otsutsuki and save the world from the infinite Tsukuyomi. After sealing Kaguya in a new moon within her personal dimension, the two young men returned to the real world where the tailed beasts were freed from the God Tree. Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the Sage of Six Paths, appeared to both Naruto and Sasuke in their consciousness, explaining the history of his sons Indra and Asura and how their conflict had reincarnated through generations. Naruto was Asura's reincarnation, while Sasuke was Indra's, continuing a cycle of conflict that spanned centuries. Hagoromo entrusted them with the power to release the infinite Tsukuyomi, requiring both of them to work together to perform the release seal. The technique needed the combined power of the Sun Seal that Hagoromo gave Naruto and the Moon Seal he gave Sasuke. Working in unison, they released everyone from the Genjutsu, and people across the world woke from their perfect dreams back to reality. However, Sasuke's ideology had shifted during the war. Witnessing the cycle of hatred firsthand and learning the truth about the shinobi system from the reanimated Hokage convinced him that the current world needed to be reset completely. After the infinite Tsukuyomi was released, Sasuke declared his intention to kill all 5 Kage and become the sole ruler who would bear all the world's hatred, believing this was the only way to unite humanity against a common enemy. He captured all the tailed beasts using his Rinnegan, intending to seal them and use their power to enforce his vision. This brought him into direct conflict with Naruto, who believed people could change and that bonds between individuals, not forced unity through fear, represented the path to true peace. The philosophical difference between them led to their final battle at the Valley of the End, the same location where Hashirama and Madara once fought. The battle raged for an entire day and night, with both young men pushing their abilities beyond their limits. The fight at the Valley of the End represented the culmination of their rivalry and their opposing philosophies. Sasuke fought to sever all bonds and become the darkness the world would unite against, while Naruto fought to protect the bonds he had formed and prove that understanding between people was possible. They clashed with techniques that permanently altered the landscape, creating a new waterfall and reshaping the valley itself. Both lost an arm in the final clash between Sasuke's Chidori and Naruto's Rasengan. Lying in the crater they created, unable to move from exhaustion and blood loss, they finally had an honest conversation. Sasuke admitted that he had lost, that Naruto's refusal to give up on him proved that perhaps bonds were not worthless. Sasuke acknowledged that Naruto was right about the possibility of change. They reconciled as friends, and Sasuke chose to begin his path of atonement by traveling the world to help people without seeking recognition or return to Konoha for years. The world rebuilt after the war with unprecedented cooperation between the villages. The bonds formed during the conflict led to better diplomatic relations and the beginning of a true peace. Naruto became recognized as a hero who saved the world, earning respect from everyone who once feared him as the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Years later, he achieved his dream of becoming the 7th Hokage, leading Konoha into an era of prosperity. Sasuke's journey of redemption took him across the world, where he discovered threats to peace and dealt with them quietly. The tailed beasts were freed from human control, allowed to live in the wild or choose their own paths. Kurama chose to remain with Naruto, having formed a genuine bond of friendship with his former jailer. The cycle of hatred that Hagoromo's sons began seemed finally broken through Naruto and Sasuke's example. The shinobi world entered a period called the Blank Period, a time of relative peace where the next generation could grow without the constant threat of war that defined previous eras. The what-if timeline begins in a world trapped in dreams. The infinite Tsukuyomi holds every person in perfect individual illusions, sustained by the God Tree's chakra absorption. Sasuke stands in the desolate reality with the 4 reanimated Hokage, looking at the cocoons formed around each person by the God Tree's roots. Minato Namikaze still holds Naruto's body, unwilling to let go of his son despite knowing he is dead. The world is silent, except for the rustling of the God Tree's branches and the faint glow of the moon's Rinne Sharingan pattern. Sasuke's Rinnegan protected him and those immediately near him from the technique's effects, creating a small pocket of reality within the Genjutsu. Hagoromo Otsutsuki appears before them, his ghostly form manifesting through the connection he shares with Sasuke as Indra's reincarnation. The Sage of Six Paths looks at Naruto's body with profound sadness, seeing the death of Asura's latest reincarnation. He explains that the infinite Tsukuyomi can be released, but doing so requires immense power and the proper sealing technique. Hagoromo originally intended for both Naruto and Sasuke to work together to release the technique. Combining the Sun Seal and Moon Seal, he would grant them. With Naruto dead, the situation becomes vastly more complicated. Hagoromo can grant Sasuke both seals, but performing the release requires channeling enormous amounts of chakra through both simultaneously. A single person attempting this would likely die from the strain. The alternative is gathering the tailed beasts, who are now sealed within the God Tree after Madara's transformation, and using their combined chakra to power the release. Sasuke asks the critical question that hangs in the air: should they release it at all? Everyone in the world is experiencing their perfect dream. No one is suffering. In those dreams, dead loved ones are alive, wars never happened, and every person lives their ideal life. The real world offers only the aftermath of a devastating war, death, and the continuation of a flawed system. Sasuke's question echoes Naruto's final words. Perhaps Madara was right. The Hokage react strongly to this suggestion. Hashirama Senju argues that artificial happiness is not real happiness, that humanity must face reality with all its flaws to truly live. Tobirama Senju adds that the infinite Tsukuyomi is essentially mass murder disguised as mercy, slowly draining everyone's life force to sustain an illusion. Hiruzen Sarutobi speaks about the will of fire, about how accepting artificial peace means giving up on the possibility of genuine improvement. Minato, his voice breaking, says that his son died believing the infinite Tsukuyomi was right, and the best way to honor Naruto's sacrifice is to prove him wrong by showing that reality, despite its pain, is worth preserving. But Sasuke, who has seen the worst of the shinobi system, who watched his brother forced to slaughter their clan for the village's sake, who witnessed the cycle of hatred consume countless lives, understands why Naruto believed what he did. The real world is broken. The dreams offer genuine happiness, even if it is false. Who has the right to decide that suffering in reality is better than contentment in illusion? Hagoromo explains that the decision must be made soon, because the God Tree is draining chakra from every person trapped in the infinite Tsukuyomi. Eventually, they will become White Zetsu, losing their humanity completely as their life force transforms into mindless soldiers for Kaguya's army. The Genjutsu was never meant to sustain people indefinitely, but rather to convert them into weapons. Everyone has perhaps months before the conversion begins, maybe less for those with smaller chakra reserves. The infinite Tsukuyomi is not salvation, but slow death. This revelation changes the moral calculation. Sasuke decides that regardless of his doubts about reality's value, he cannot allow humanity to be transformed into monsters. They must release the technique. The question is, how to do so when Naruto reinforced it with his dying chakra, making it far more difficult to dispel than it would have been originally. Sasuke examines the technique with his Rinnegan and discovers that Naruto wove his own chakra signature into the Genjutsu's structure, creating additional stability that resists standard dispelling methods. The first step requires freeing the tailed beasts from the God Tree. Sasuke uses his Rinnegan's power to enter the God Tree's chakra network, navigating through the massive structure until he finds where the beast's chakra is being held. The God Tree fights back, its branches attacking and trying to trap him, but Sasuke's Susanoo protects him while he works. He locates each tailed beast's consciousness within the tree, and begins severing the connections holding them. One by one, the tailed beasts manifest in reality: Shukaku, Madatabi, Isobu, Son Goku, Kokuo, Saiken, Chome, Gyuki, and finally Kurama. The Nine Tails emerges last, roaring with rage at being sealed again after experiencing brief freedom. Kurama looks around and sees Naruto's body, and the fox's rage transforms into something more complex. The beast approaches Minato, who still holds his son, and speaks for the first time to the fourth Hokage. Kurama tells Minato that Naruto died without fear, believing he was saving the world. The boy was wrong, but genuinely thought he was doing right. This does not excuse what he did, but perhaps explains it. The tailed beasts agree to lend their chakra to release the infinite Tsukuyomi, though several express doubt about the wisdom of doing so. Shukaku points out that humans will simply return to war and conflict once freed. Kurama, surprisingly, defends the decision to release them, arguing that living in illusion is not living at all. The fox explains that he spent decades sealed inside Jinchuriki, and that even that imprisonment was preferable to the false existence of the infinite Tsukuyomi. At least within the seal, Kurama maintained his identity and will. The people in the Genjutsu are slowly losing themselves to artificial happiness. The other beasts defer to Kurama as the strongest, and preparations begin to release the technique. Sasuke receives both the Sun Seal and Moon Seal from Hagoromo, marking his hands with the symbols. The sage explains that using both seals will put immense strain on Sasuke's body and chakra network, potentially killing him. Sasuke accepts this risk because he understands that someone must take responsibility for ending this nightmare. The ritual to release the infinite Tsukuyomi requires positioning the tailed beasts in a formation around the god tree's base, while Sasuke channels their combined chakra through both seals simultaneously. The Hokage provide support by using their own techniques to stabilize the chakra flow and prevent the god tree from interfering. The process begins, and immediately Sasuke feels the strain. The amount of chakra flowing through him exceeds anything he experienced even during the battle with Kaguya. His body burns from the inside as incompatible types of chakra from 9 different beasts pass through his system. Worse, Naruto's reinforcement of the technique actively resists being dispelled, fighting against the release with surprising intelligence. Naruto wove his final will into the Genjutsu, creating a barrier that interprets any attempt to dispel it as an attack on what Naruto died to accomplish. Sasuke must not only channel enough power to break the technique, but also overcome Naruto's dying wish embedded in the jutsu itself. The strain proves too much. Sasuke's body begins breaking down at the cellular level from the chakra overload. His Rinnegan bleeds as it tries to direct the flow, and his Susanoo manifests automatically as his body's last defense mechanism. The Hokage realize that even with the tailed beast's power, Sasuke cannot sustain the technique long enough to complete the dispelling. Minato makes a decision. As an Edo Tensei reincarnation, he possesses infinite chakra regeneration and a body that cannot die. He can serve as an additional channel for the tailed beast's power, sharing the burden with Sasuke. Minato approaches, taking one of Sasuke's hands and allowing the chakra to flow through both of them. The technique adjusts, splitting the strain between two people. Minato's body begins disintegrating from the damage, but as a reanimated corpse, he regenerates almost instantly. He tells Sasuke that this is the least he can do after failing his son so completely. If he cannot save Naruto, at least he can save the world his son trapped. The other Hokage contribute their chakra as well, creating a network of power that gradually overcomes Naruto's reinforcement. Kurama adds the most significant contribution, channeling not just chakra, but also the emotional connection he formed with Naruto over the boy's life. The fox understands Naruto's signature better than anyone, and can predict how the reinforcement will resist. Kurama speaks to Naruto's lingering will within the technique, explaining that Naruto was wrong, but that his dedication meant something. The boy genuinely believed he was saving everyone. That belief deserves to be honored, even as it is proven incorrect. Slowly, the reinforcement weakens as Kurama's words and chakra convince Naruto's will to release its grip. The infinite Tsukuyomi structure begins cracking, the Genjutsu destabilizing as the dispelling technique takes effect. Light erupts from the moon as the Rinne Sharingan pattern fades, and across the world, the god tree's roots begin releasing their captives. People wake from their perfect dreams to a devastated reality. Shinobi find themselves in the middle of a battlefield, surrounded by destruction and death. Civilians wake to find their villages damaged or destroyed. Everyone experiences the profound disorientation of having lived what felt like years in perfect happiness, only to return to a world of suffering. Many cry out in anguish, demanding to be returned to the dreams. Some attack the people trying to help them, believing this is another trick. The psychological damage from the infinite Tsukuyomi rivals the physical damage from the war. People remember their dreams vividly, dead children alive again, lost loves returned, wars never fought. Reality seems unbearably cruel in comparison. Medical corps struggle to handle not just physical injuries, but the mass psychological trauma. Some people, particularly those who lost everything in the war, fall into catatonic states, unable to accept that their perfect dreams were false. The Allied shinobi forces must deal with this new crisis while also processing their own experiences in the genjutsu. The five Kage wake to find themselves alive but defeated. Tsunade immediately begins coordinating medical response, organizing healers to treat both physical and psychological injuries. Gaara, who dreamed of a world where his mother loved him and Yashimaru never betrayed him, struggles with the return to reality but forces himself to lead. The fourth Raikage finds his brother Killer Bee injured but alive from his battle with Naruto. The Mizukage and Tsuchikage coordinate their village's responses to the mass awakening. News spreads quickly about what happened. The infinite Tsukuyomi was real. The world was saved by Sasuke Uchiha and the tailed beasts, and Naruto Uzumaki died helping to trap them all in the genjutsu. The revelation about Naruto's role creates complex reactions. Some view him as the ultimate villain who nearly destroyed the world. Others, learning about his childhood and how he was raised by Madara, see him as a victim turned into a weapon. The debate about Naruto's legacy begins immediately. Sasuke collapses after the technique completes, his body pushed beyond its limits. He survives only because of the Sage of Six Paths' power and the immediate medical attention from Tsunade. Minato's Edo Tensei body begins fading as Hagoromo releases all reincarnated souls to the Pure Land, explaining that their time in the living world must end. Minato asks to see Naruto's body one last time before he goes. He holds his son again, apologizing for every failure, every moment he was not there to protect him. Minato tells Naruto's body that despite everything, he loves him and always will. He asks forgiveness for failing as a father, for not being strong enough to prevent Naruto's kidnapping, for not being there to raise him. Minato's last words before fading are a hope that perhaps in another life, in another world, he and Kushina could have raised their son to know happiness instead of hatred. The four Hokage disappear, returning to the afterlife with the weight of the war's outcome on their souls. The tailed beasts gather to discuss their future now that the war is over. They are free from human control, no longer sealed in Jinchuriki or trapped in the God Tree. Kurama suggests they separate and live in the wild as they did before the Sage of Six Paths died, and humans began hunting them. The other beasts agree, planning to find remote locations far from human civilization. Before leaving, Kurama approaches Naruto's body one final time. The fox speaks aloud, even though no one can hear inside the seal anymore. Kurama tells Naruto that despite everything, despite the death and destruction Naruto caused, the fox does not hate him. Naruto was shaped by forces beyond his control and did what he genuinely believed was right. He was wrong, but his conviction was real. Kurama explains that in another world, with different circumstances, they could have been partners instead of prisoner and jailer. The fox expresses something approaching respect for the human who never wavered in his beliefs even unto death. Then Kurama turns and leaves, disappearing into the wild with no intention of ever being sealed again. The Allied shinobi forces face the enormous task of rebuilding a world that was physically devastated by war and psychologically shattered by the infinite Tsukuyomi. Villages coordinate reconstruction efforts, sharing resources and labor in ways that would have been impossible before the war. The shared trauma of nearly losing everything creates a foundation for cooperation. However, debates rage about how to remember the war, and particularly how to view Naruto Uzumaki. Konoha struggles with the legacy of their missing Jinchuriki, who became their greatest enemy. Some argue he should be remembered as a victim of Madara's manipulation, a child stolen and corrupted. Others insist he made choices and must be held accountable for the deaths he caused. Jiraiya, traumatized by his encounter with Naruto and his failure to reach him, begins writing a book about everything that happened. He titles it The Tale of the Shinobi Who Believed in Dreams, using Naruto's story as a cautionary tale about the dangers of believing in absolute solutions to complex problems. Sasuke, once recovered, faces judgment for his actions during the war. While he fought to save the world in the end, many remember that he worked with Orochimaru and others have committed crimes as a missing nin. The Kage debate his fate, ultimately deciding that his role in defeating Kaguya and releasing the infinite Tsukuyomi earns him a pardon. However, Sasuke cannot simply return to normal life. He chooses to leave the villages, traveling the world to ensure no other threats emerge while reflecting on everything that happened. Particularly, he thinks about his argument with Naruto before his death, about whether the infinite Tsukuyomi was mercy or murder. Sasuke concluded that reality, despite its suffering, is worth preserving. But he understands why someone like Naruto, raised in isolation and taught that bonds were weakness, reached a different conclusion. The moral complexity haunts him. The world attempts to move forward, but the scars remain. Villages erect memorials to those who died in the war, including complex monuments that acknowledge the tragedy of those who fought on the wrong side believing they were doing right. Konoha creates a memorial specifically for Naruto Uzumaki, not celebrating him as a hero, but acknowledging him as a victim of circumstances beyond his control. The memorial includes Minato and Kushina's names, keeping the family together in death as they could not be in life. The inscription reads, Naruto Uzumaki, son of the fourth Hokage, lost to darkness, died believing in peace. Many visit the memorial, leaving flowers and contemplating the tragedy of a child who never had a chance to choose his own path. Iruka Umino, who in the original timeline became Naruto's first person to acknowledge him, stands before the memorial and cries for the student he never got to teach. The ripples of Naruto's absence and then his return as an enemy touch every life. The psychological impact of the infinite Tsukuyomi takes years to fully address. Many people struggle with the knowledge that their perfect dreams were false, leading to depression and dissatisfaction with reality. Mental health becomes a priority for the villages in ways it never was before. People form support groups to discuss their experiences in the genjutsu and help each other adjust to reality. Some never fully recover, always carrying the knowledge that somewhere in an illusion, a better version of their life exists. Children born just before the technique was cast grow up hearing about the perfect world their parents experienced, creating a generation that questions whether their parents' tales of dream worlds are real memories or fantasy. The line between reality and illusion becomes a philosophical question that dominates intellectual discourse in the post-war period. Many wonder if Madara's and Naruto's beliefs about the infinite Tsukuyomi being superior to reality had merit, even if the execution was wrong. Years pass, and the shinobi world stabilizes into a new normal. The villages maintain their alliance, recognizing that cooperation prevents the conditions that nearly led to their destruction. Technology advances as villages share knowledge more freely. The next generation grows up in relative peace, though shadows of the war linger. Kakashi becomes the sixth Hokage, leading Konoha through the recovery period. He often visits Naruto's memorial, standing in silence and wondering what might have been if he had been there to prevent the kidnapping. Sakura becomes a renowned medical ninja, working to heal both physical and psychological wounds from the war. Shikamaru advises the Hokage, his tactical genius helping navigate post-war politics. Team 7 never formed in this timeline, but the people who would have been teammates carry similar scars from facing the person who should have been their friend and comrade. The tailed beasts live in remote locations, occasionally spotted but never captured again. Villages officially declare that Jinchuriki programs are discontinued, that the practice of sealing sentient beings into humans is a relic of a darker time. The decision comes from recognizing that the Jinchuriki system created much of the suffering that Naruto and Madara pointed to as justification for the infinite Tsukuyomi. If the villages want to prove their system is better than the illusion, they must address the fundamental flaws that made the illusion appealing. Reforms spread through the shinobi world. Child soldier practices are restricted, mental health resources are expanded, and diplomatic solutions are prioritized over military ones. The changes are imperfect and incomplete, but they represent genuine attempts to improve reality rather than escaping into dreams. This becomes Naruto's unintended legacy, forcing the villages to confront their failures by nearly destroying them. Sasuke returns to the villages occasionally, reporting on external threats and helping with missions that require his unique abilities. He never settles down, always moving, always working. When people ask why, He explains that he needs to ensure no one else follows Madara's and Naruto's path. Someone must watch for the signs of another person deciding that destroying the world to save it is justified. Sasuke carries the burden of understanding both Naruto's and Madara's perspectives while rejecting their conclusions. He exists between worlds, understanding why someone would want to cast the infinite Tsukuyomi while fighting to ensure it never happens again. This internal conflict defines his life, making him the guardian of a peace he struggles to fully believe in. Yet he continues, because the alternative is accepting that Naruto was right, and Sasuke cannot bring himself to believe that artificial happiness is better than genuine suffering. The saga ends with the world forever changed by the boy who was stolen as an infant and turned into a weapon for peace through force. Naruto Uzumaki never became the hero who inspired hope. Instead, he became the cautionary tale about the dangers of absolute conviction and the importance of human connection. His life proved that power without empathy and certainty without doubt can lead to catastrophic outcomes even when intentions are pure. The shinobi world survived his attempt to save them, but at tremendous cost. Thousands died in the war, and everyone carries psychological scars from experiencing perfect dreams and being forced back to harsh reality. Yet life continues because people choose to believe that real struggles and genuine connections matter more than artificial contentment. This choice honors those who died fighting the infinite Tsukuyomi while acknowledging the complexity of why someone like Naruto believed the opposite. The world is not healed but healing, not perfect but trying, and that imperfect forward motion represents humanity's answer to Madara's philosophy of enforced peace through dreams. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the final saga of our What If timeline. Saga 6, Legacy of the Weapon. In the original timeline, the world entered an era of unprecedented peace, following the Fourth Shinobi World War. Naruto Uzumaki became the 7th Hokage approximately 15 years after the war ended, fulfilling his lifelong dream. His leadership style emphasized diplomacy, understanding between villages, and breaking cycles of hatred through forgiveness and connection. Under his guidance, Konohagakure prospered, and the alliance between the 5 great nations strengthened into genuine partnership rather than mere political convenience. Technology advanced rapidly as villages shared knowledge freely, leading to innovations like computers, trains, and scientific ninja tools that changed how shinobi operated. The next generation, including Naruto's children, Boruto and Himawari, grew up in a world without major wars or conflicts between nations. They attended the Ninja Academy during peacetime, trained without the constant threat of death that previous generations faced, and had opportunities to pursue dreams beyond simply surviving. Naruto's family life represented everything he fought for throughout his journey. He married Hinata Hyuga, who loved him since childhood and supported him through every challenge. Their relationship demonstrated that bonds and love were strengths rather than weaknesses, directly contradicting the philosophy Madara tried to instill. Naruto became a father, experiencing the parental love he never received as a child. His relationship with his children, particularly his struggles balancing Hokage duties with family time, showed the human cost of leadership, but also the rewards of genuine connections. Boruto initially resented his father's absences, not understanding the weight of responsibility Naruto carried. This tension created conflict between father and son until Boruto learned about Naruto's past and the sacrifices he made for the village. The generational conflict resolved through understanding and communication, reinforcing the series' themes about breaking cycles through empathy. Sasuke's redemption journey concluded with him becoming a shadow protector of the village, working to eliminate threats before they could endanger the peace. He married Sakura Haruno, his former teammate who never gave up on him despite his years as a missing nin. Their daughter Sarada represented the new generation of Uchiha, growing up without the clan's curse of hatred defining her path. Sasuke's relationship with Naruto evolved from rivalry to genuine friendship, with both men acknowledging how they saved each other through their bond. They worked together to train the next generation, passing on their knowledge and philosophy. Sasuke's occasional returns to the village became moments of joy rather than tension, showing his complete reintegration into society. The world Naruto and Sasuke created through their struggles proved that peace through understanding was possible, that the cycle of hatred could be broken, and that bonds between people represented humanity's greatest strength rather than its weakness. The Boruto era showed the challenges of maintaining peace after achieving it. The next generation faced different problems: complacency, loss of traditional values, and threats from beyond the known world like the Otsutsuki clan. However, these challenges were addressed through the foundation Naruto's generation built. Villages cooperated to face external threats. The bonds between shinobi from different nations, forged during the war, remained strong enough to withstand new pressures. Technology and scientific advancement did not replace traditional shinobi skills, but complemented them, creating new possibilities. The tailed beasts lived freely but maintained relationships with their former hosts, particularly Kurama, who remained with Naruto as a true partner and friend. The world was not perfect, but it was genuinely better than before. The sacrifices of previous generations created real improvements in how people lived and interacted. Naruto's philosophy of never giving up on people and believing in the possibility of change was vindicated through the peace that lasted decades. The what-if timeline moves forward 20 years after the Fourth Shinobi World War. The generation born during or immediately after the war has reached adulthood, shaped by stories of the infinite Tsukuyomi and the boy who tried to trap the world in dreams. Konoha is led by the 8th Hokage, as Kakashi served his term and stepped down after rebuilding the village to stability. The candidate selected for 8th Hokage is Sakura Haruno, chosen for her medical expertise, administrative competence, and level-headed approach to governance. Her selection represents the village's priority on healing and stability over pure combat power. The choice is deliberate, sending a message that Konoha values preserving life rather than taking it. Sakura stands before the Hokage monument being carved with her face, looking out over a village that survived near annihilation. She thinks about the teammate she never had, the boy who should have been part of Team 7 but instead became their greatest enemy. The next generation grows up in a world fundamentally shaped by trauma. Parents tell their children about the dreams they experienced in the infinite Tsukuyomi, creating a generation that questions the value of the reality they inherited. Classroom discussions in the academy now include philosophy courses, examining whether Madara, Uchiha, and Naruto Uzumaki were truly wrong about reality being inferior to perfected illusion. These discussions are uncomfortable but necessary because the psychological impact of the infinite Tsukuyomi persists across decades. Some adults never fully recovered from experiencing perfect lives, only to return to flawed reality. Suicide rates increased in the years following the war as people could not reconcile their dream experiences with their actual lives. The villages established mental health systems to address this ongoing crisis, but some wounds never heal completely. The generation that survived the infinite Tsukuyomi carries permanent scars, and they pass their complicated relationship with reality to their children. The reforms implemented after the war have had mixed success. The Jinchuriki program remains discontinued, with no villages attempting to seal tailed beasts into humans again. This represents a genuine improvement in the shinobi system, acknowledging that creating living weapons violated basic ethics. However, other reforms have been harder to maintain. Economic pressures and political tensions have caused some villages to backslide into old patterns. Border disputes occasionally escalate into armed conflicts, though nothing on the scale of previous wars. The alliance between villages remains stronger than before the Fourth Shinobi World War, but cracks appear as memories of shared struggle fade, and new generations prioritize their villages' interests over collective cooperation. The peace is fragile rather than robust, maintained more through fear of another catastrophe than genuine resolution of underlying conflicts. Many wonder if the sacrifices of the war generation actually fixed anything or simply delayed inevitable problems. The debate about Naruto Uzumaki's legacy intensifies rather than resolves over time. Academic scholars study his life extensively, producing competing interpretations of his actions and beliefs. One school of thought views him as a pure victim, a child stolen and corrupted, who cannot be held morally responsible for actions determined by his upbringing. These scholars emphasize Madara's manipulation and Naruto's complete isolation from alternative perspectives. Another school argues that Naruto made choices and must be evaluated by those choices regardless of circumstances. They point to his intelligence and tactical ability, arguing that someone capable of complex strategic thinking could have questioned Madara's teachings if he chose to. A third school suggests Naruto represents the logical endpoint of the shinobi system itself, that his existence as a weapon was not aberration but inevitable result of villages creating Jinchuriki and treating children as tools. This interpretation suggests the system created Naruto as much as Madara did. Jiraiya's book, The Tale of the Shinobi Who Believed in Dreams, becomes required reading in academy curricula across all villages. The book presents Naruto's story as tragedy, examining how someone with enormous potential became a cautionary tale about the dangers of isolation and absolute conviction. Jiraiya writes with profound regret, acknowledging his failure as Naruto's godfather to prevent the kidnapping or reach the boy later. The book's final chapter poses questions rather than providing answers. If everyone in the infinite Tsukuyomi was happy, was forcing them back to reality the moral choice? If Naruto genuinely believed he was saving people, does his sincerity mitigate his actions? Can someone raised in complete isolation without exposure to alternatives be held to the same moral standards as someone who chose evil from a place of knowledge? These questions generate endless discussion, and Jiraiya admits he does not know the answers. The book's power comes from its honesty about moral complexity, rather than presenting simple narratives of good versus evil. The memorial to Naruto Uzumaki in Konoha becomes a site of pilgrimage for people across the shinobi world. Some visit to curse him for the deaths he caused. Others visit to mourn the child who never had a chance. Still others visit seeking answers to their own questions about reality and illusion, using Naruto's story as a lens for examining their struggles with the world. The memorial site includes a museum documenting the Fourth Shinobi World War, with sections dedicated to the infinite Tsukuyomi and its effects. Preserved testimonies from people who experienced the Genjutsu describe their perfect dreams in detail. Visitors can read hundreds of accounts describing worlds where dead children lived, where wars never happened, where every person achieved their deepest desires. The museum does not tell people whether these dreams were better or worse than reality. It simply presents the information and asks visitors to decide for themselves. This approach creates profound emotional experiences, with many visitors leaving in tears, regardless of their conclusions. Sasuke Uchiha returns to Konoha after years of wandering, now in his late 30s and showing the wear of his self-imposed mission. He meets with Sakura, discussing the state of the world and whether their efforts to preserve reality over illusion were justified. Sasuke admits that he still questions the choice to dispel the infinite Tsukuyomi, particularly when he sees people suffering from poverty, disease, or loss. In their dreams, none of them suffered. In reality, their pain is real and constant. Sakura responds that the suffering is real, but so is the joy, the growth, and the genuine connections between people. Dreams offer perfect happiness, but at the cost of truth and agency. Reality offers the possibility of making real choices that matter, even if many of those choices lead to pain. Sasuke asks if people who would choose the dream over reality are wrong. Sakura answers that she does not know, and perhaps there is no objectively correct answer. All she knows is that she would rather struggle in reality than live in artificial perfection. The conversation turns to Naruto specifically. Sasuke reveals that he searched for years to find any record of Naruto's life before Madara's death, hoping to understand what the boy experienced. Black Zetsu disappeared after Kaguya's sealing, taking with it first-hand knowledge of Naruto's childhood. White Zetsu clones were destroyed during the war. The cave where Madara lived remained hidden through Madara's techniques, and Sasuke never located it, despite years of searching. All they have are second-hand accounts from Akatsuki members about Naruto's behavior and abilities. The boy himself is a mystery beyond the known facts. Stolen as infant, raised by Madara, trained as weapon, died believing in the infinite Tsukuyomi. What he thought, what he felt, what moments of doubt or certainty he experienced, all of that died with him. Sasuke finds this absence of knowledge deeply frustrating because understanding Naruto might provide answers about whether they made the right choice in dispelling the genjutsu. Without that understanding, Sasuke is left with questions that haunt him. The tailed beasts have not been seen in years, having retreated to the most remote locations on the planet. Occasionally, a merchant or traveling shinobi reports a glimpse of one of the great beasts, but they avoid human contact completely. The villages made promises after the war to never seal them again, but the beasts trust humans only as far as they can see them. Kurama, the Nine Tails who spent the most time sealed in humans, has not been sighted since leaving Naruto's body. Some believe the fox went into permanent hiding, traumatized by the experience of being sealed multiple times. Others suggest Kurama is watching humanity from distance, evaluating whether they learned anything from nearly destroying themselves. The absence of the tailed beasts creates a vacuum in the world's power structure, as villages can no longer rely on Jinchuriki as strategic assets. This forces different approaches to conflict resolution and changes the calculation of military power. The change is probably beneficial, removing weapons of mass destruction from play, but it also removes a certain stability that mutually assured destruction provided. 20 years after the war, a new generation enters the academy with no personal memory of the infinite Tsukuyomi. They know it only through their parents' stories and historical accounts. This generation asks different questions than their parents. They want to know why the previous generation was so certain reality is better than dreams. They point to ongoing poverty, continued conflicts, and systemic injustices, asking what about this reality justifies forcing billions of people out of perfect happiness. The older generation struggles to answer beyond variations of because it's real and because you need genuine agency. The young people respond that starving in reality does not feel more valuable than eating in a dream. Dying in reality does not seem more meaningful than living in illusion. The philosophical divide between generations who experience the infinite Tsukuyomi and those who only heard about it creates new tensions in society. Some extremist groups even advocate for researching ways to recreate the technique, arguing that humanity deserves a second chance to choose dreams over suffering. The villages respond harshly to any suggestion of recreating the infinite Tsukuyomi. Laws are passed making research into the technique punishable by death. Anyone advocating for mass genjutsu faces immediate arrest. The reaction is driven by fear as much as conviction, revealing the fragility of the consensus that preserved reality. The older generation worries that without the visceral memory of almost losing everything, the next generation might make different choices. They might look at Naruto Uzumaki's actions not as cautionary tale, but as inspiration, as someone who had the courage to do what others would not. This fear leads to increased authoritarianism in some villages, with governments suppressing philosophical discussions they deem dangerous. The irony is not lost on observers that villages restrict freedom to preserve a reality they claim is valuable because it allows freedom. The contradictions pile up, suggesting the world saved from the infinite Tsukuyomi has not resolved its fundamental problems. Sakura, as 8th Hokage, makes a controversial decision. She orders the creation of a complete archive of testimonies from everyone who experienced the infinite Tsukuyomi, preserving their dream experiences in exhaustive detail. The project takes years and enormous resources, recording hundreds of thousands of accounts. The archive is sealed with the strictest security, accessible only to approved researchers and future Hokage. Sakura's stated reason is that future generations deserve complete information to make informed judgments about whether the choice to dispel the technique was correct. Her critics argue that preserving the dreams gives them legitimacy and provides material for extremists to use in arguing for recreating the technique. Sakura responds that hiding information out of fear means admitting uncertainty about their own choices. If reality truly is better than illusion, then complete knowledge should support that conclusion rather than threaten it. The archive becomes her most controversial legacy, debated long after her term as Hokage ends. The academy curriculum evolves to include ethical philosophy focusing on the infinite Tsukuyomi question. Students debate the trolley problem variance, where saving one person means condemning another, But they also debate whether forcing billions from happiness to suffering is justified by abstract principles about reality and agency. Teachers are trained to facilitate these discussions without imposing answers, recognizing that the questions lack clear solutions. Some students conclude that Naruto Uzumaki was right and that the current generation made a mistake stopping him. These students are monitored carefully, but not punished for their beliefs, as suppressing thought has proven counterproductive. Other students conclude that reality with all its flaws is infinitely more valuable than any illusion. Most fall somewhere in the middle, uncertain and troubled by the complexity. This generation grows up philosophically sophisticated, but also deeply uncertain about fundamental questions previous generations took for granted. Technology continues advancing, bringing new possibilities and problems. Virtual reality systems are developed that allow people to experience simulated worlds. These systems are nowhere near as complete as the infinite Tsukuyomi, but they offer temporary escapes from reality. Some people become addicted to these simulations, spending more time in artificial experiences than engaging with reality. The villages struggle with how to regulate this technology. Complete prohibition would be authoritarian and likely ineffective. Unrestricted access creates public health crises as people withdraw from society. The compromise solutions satisfy no one, creating a complex patchwork of regulations that vary by village and evolve constantly. The situation highlights questions about what makes reality valuable and whether choosing simulation over reality is fundamentally different from choosing the infinite Tsukuyomi. The lines blur in ways that would have seemed unthinkable before the war. 30 years after the Fourth Shinobi World War, the generation that fought in it begins dying of natural causes. Kakashi passes away peacefully, having lived long enough to see Konoha rebuilt and stable. His funeral is attended by shinobi from all villages, honoring his contributions during and after the war. Sakura speaks at the funeral, describing how Kakashi carried the weight of failing Minato and Naruto for the rest of his life. She reveals that Kakashi visited Naruto's memorial every week without fail for 3 decades, standing in silence before the monument. He never spoke about what he thought during those visits, but Sakura believes he was apologizing, explaining to Naruto's memory why they chose to preserve reality despite understanding why Naruto believed otherwise. Kakashi's generation passes into history, taking their first-hand memories of the war with them. Future generations will know the infinite Tsukuyomi only through records and stories, creating further distance from the visceral reality of almost losing everything. The debate about Naruto's legacy reaches a crescendo when a famous philosopher publishes a book arguing that Naruto Uzumaki was history's greatest humanitarian despite being remembered as a villain. The book contends that Naruto sought to eliminate all suffering through the only method that actually works, removing people from the reality that causes suffering. The philosopher argues that judging Naruto by the standards of a reality he sought to transcend is circular reasoning. Within the framework of the infinite Tsukuyomi, every person would have been perfectly happy. The fact that this happiness was artificial only matters if you privilege reality over happiness, a value judgment rather than objective truth. The book causes outrage among war survivors and approval among younger generations frustrated with reality's limitations. Riots break out in some villages when the book is taught in advanced academy courses. The philosopher receives death threats but also speaking invitations. The controversy reveals how fragile the consensus about reality's value remains even decades after the war. Sasuke, now in his 50s and one of the last surviving members of the war generation's frontline fighters, makes a final journey. He travels to every major village and speaks publicly about his experiences during the war. He describes dispelling the infinite Tsukuyomi, feeling the resistance from Naruto's dying will trying to preserve the technique. He explains that he understood Naruto's perspective, that he saw merit in the argument for choosing dreams over reality. Sasuke admits that he still does not know with certainty whether they made the correct choice. What he knows is that they made the human choice, rejecting artificial perfection in favor of genuine struggle. He tells audiences that if humanity cannot find meaning and value in reality despite its suffering, then perhaps Naruto was right, and they should have stayed in dreams. But if people can create genuine connections, find real joy, and build something meaningful despite pain and loss, then preserving reality was justified. Sasuke concludes that the question is not answered by his generation, but by how future generations choose to live. They can prove Naruto wrong by making reality worth its cost, or they can prove him right by failing to do so. The final resolution comes not through philosophical arguments, but through lived experience. Over decades, people make billions of individual choices about how to engage with reality. Some withdraw into simulations and artificial experiences, proving unable or unwilling to find value in genuine struggle. Others build families, create art, form friendships, and work to improve their communities, finding meaning through authentic connections and real accomplishments. Most people fall somewhere between living imperfect lives that contain both genuine joy and real suffering. The aggregate of these choices determines whether the world saved from the infinite Tsukuyomi justifies the salvation. The answer is not universal or permanent. Each person and each generation must decide anew whether reality is worth its cost. This ongoing negotiation between the value of genuine experience and the appeal of artificial perfection becomes humanity's permanent condition, the question they can never finally answer but must constantly engage with. 50 years after the war, Naruto Uzumaki's memorial in Konoha undergoes renovation. The original inscription is preserved, but a new section is added containing words from both sides of the philosophical debate his actions sparked. One quote, attributed to a survivor of the war, reads, "Naruto Uzumaki tried to save us from suffering by eliminating choice. We saved ourselves from him by choosing to suffer authentically." Another quote, attributed to a philosopher born after the war, reads, "History remembers Naruto Uzumaki as a villain because the victors write history. In another world, he might have been remembered as the greatest humanitarian who ever lived." The memorial now presents both perspectives without endorsing either, acknowledging that Naruto's legacy is permanently contested. This ambiguity disturbs some who want clear moral lessons. Others appreciate the honesty, recognizing that complex historical figures resist simple categorization. Naruto remains what he was in life, someone who defies easy understanding. The story of Naruto Uzumaki, the boy stolen as an infant and turned into history's most consequential weapon, becomes mythology for future generations. Parents tell their children about the child who never experienced love and therefore could not understand its value. Teachers explain how someone raised in complete isolation with a single worldview became absolutely convinced of that worldview's truth. Philosophers debate whether his actions were evil, misguided, or tragic. The debates never resolve because they touch fundamental questions about reality, happiness, choice, and what makes life meaningful. These questions lack objective answers, only perspectives shaped by values and experiences. Naruto's story forces each generation to articulate their own values and defend their own choices about how to live. This is perhaps his ultimate legacy, not proving that dreams are better than reality or vice versa, but forcing humanity to consciously examine what makes either one valuable. The shinobi world continues forward into an uncertain future. The peace is imperfect, maintained through effort rather than guaranteed by resolution of underlying conflicts. Villages still compete for resources and influence, but they remember the cost of total war and pull back from the edge. Technology advances, creating new possibilities and new ethical dilemmas. The next generation grows up with unprecedented opportunities, but also unprecedented philosophical uncertainties. They live in the shadow of a generation that almost lost everything and barely chose to preserve reality. This shadow shapes them in ways both positive and negative, creating a generation hyper-aware of how fragile civilization is, but also uncertain about whether civilization is worth preserving. They know that billions of people once experienced perfect happiness in dreams, and that their ancestors forced them back to reality against their will. Whether that decision was right remains the defining question of the post-war era. The final scene takes place at Naruto's memorial, on the 50-year anniversary of the Fourth Shinobi World War's end. Survivors gather alongside their children and grandchildren. Sasuke Uchiha, now 70 years old and one of the last surviving members of the generation that fought, stands before the memorial stone. He places flowers at its base, a ritual he has performed countless times. A young academy student approaches and asks him if he ever regretted releasing the infinite Tsukuyomi, if he ever wished he had let people stay in their dreams. Sasuke looks at the child, seeing in her face the future he and his generation chose to preserve. He answers that he regrets and doubts constantly, that certainty is a luxury he cannot afford. But he also says that doubt and uncertainty are parts of being human. Perfect conviction is what created Naruto and Madara. The ability to question yourself, to live with uncertainty, to accept that you might be wrong, these are what separate people from weapons. The student asks if that means they made the right choice. Sasuke smiles sadly and says that he does not know, and that perhaps not knowing is the point. The world they preserved is one where people must figure out their own answers rather than having answers imposed through genjutsu. Whether that freedom is worth its cost is something each person decides for themselves. Sasuke walks away from the memorial, leaving the student to contemplate the monument to a boy who never had freedom, who was shaped into a weapon from birth, and who died believing he was saving the world. The stone stands unchanged, bearing witness to the complexity of history and the permanence of questions that resist simple answers. Flowers accumulate at its base, left by people with different conclusions about Naruto's legacy. The memorial serves its purpose, keeping the memory alive so that future generations can learn from both Naruto's actions and the choices made in response to them. The shinobi world moves forward, forever shaped by the boy who was stolen, the weapon he became, and the choice to preserve reality over dreams. Whether that choice was correct remains open, an eternal question that defines humanity's relationship with both suffering and meaning. The story of Naruto Uzumaki, raised by Madara Uchiha, ends not with answers, but with the recognition that some questions are more valuable than any answer could be. If you enjoyed this complete timeline rewrite, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.